Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. Roll call, 5 supervisors are present. Our township solicitor is present. Township manager is present. Our township assistant to the manager is present. Our township engineer is present, and our township police chief is present. So all accounted for. The board, I'd like to bring up the date on something. The board met in executive session this evening before this meeting to discuss personnel and litigation. Also, the board met in executive session on June 24th, July 9th, July 13th, and July 27th prior to the meeting for the purposes of personnel and possible litigation. And let's please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start our public comment time, I'd like to take this particular time to welcome Chief Yoke, please step in the room. Our new police officer, we will introduce you. Chief Yoke will do that. We want to make sure to be part of our setup.
Got a packed house for it tonight too. That's good. Just thought we'd introduce the public to our newest addition to the South Strabane police officer. This is Connor Cooley. He's been with us in training now for 10 weeks. Connor's 22 years old, comes from Canonsburg, college educated. He's working out really well. All the field training officers getting really positive feedback on him. And we welcome. We're happy to have him. Hope he has a long career here. So, yeah, Connor Cooley, say hi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, at this time, number 3 on the agenda is public comment time. The Township Board of Supervisors allocates a period of time during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Board of Supervisors on any matter. Each person addressing the Board of Supervisors is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Mr. Standing, do you have a list of?
I do not have a list.
Would people raise their hand in if they want to come up and identify yourself?
Mine will probably be the quickest one.
Okay.
I live on Country Club Road, 412. Above me, there's a house testimony that was vacant for 20 years, and it should have been condemned. They put a thing out, if your grass is over 6 inches or 8 inches, you have to cut it. So they brought a plow in and destroyed the house. And that's where I look at. I'll show you what I look at my backyard as I sit on my patio. And I don't know what to do about it. This is the house. That's what I see from my patio.
You want me to pass this?
Yes, please. That's, I look out on my patio, and if you scroll on, you'll see where I sit. That's what sits there, and it's been sitting there for 3 weeks. What do I do? Who do I call? I don't know.
Mr. Michael, do you have a comment?
She has. Suggest the township code enforcement officer take a look at this immediately.
Definitely take care of that.
We'll send
Okay.
somebody. Let's see what's going on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, yep. And we're gonna give you your phone back.
Okay, that's good. Thank
That's
you
part of the
so
deal.
very much.
Okay, next. We have a signed list.
We don't have a signed list. Just a hand. Is there a
Just
hand?
raise your hand, want to come on up, identify yourself and.
Take your name and address, please.
Name's Craig Rumbaugh. Address is 5 Robin Drive. I had a brief comment with regards to the Meadows Landing project. We spoke at the last meeting. The one issue of concern for us is that it joins our property, and there's a concern over erosion. There's a very steep cut that's being made that's by the site map is within 1 feet of our boundary line. So over the years, my wife and I had a concern about that eroding away. So I'd like that addressed in some form or fashion.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Next.
Before Jack starts, so you know, folks, when you speak here, we take the notes down, we take the information down, and we get back to you, okay?
Okay.
Just so you know.
Put your name.
Jack Felix, 192 Fisher Road.
I'm over here tonight about my well. They started moving a lot of dirt over there, and all this here cold air going to spread around from that big dump. They tell me they're going to mix it in with the dirt. What's going to happen when that's all spread out over the land, and when it rains, the water is going down into the water supply? If it messes my well up, are they going to take care of my well? Will they run city water to me? I've been using that well for 36 years, you know? And if it gets ruined, I think they should take care of it. And I know I was over here at the meeting here last week, and where they're running the buildings behind my property, 40 foot behind my property. I thought maybe they could move it back some, but I was told they can't do that. And it's like 40 feet from my property line where they're going to run the duplexes.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to go on record about my well. If they mess my well up, I think they should take care of me for city water. And that's the reason I'm here tonight, you know.
If that would occur, more than likely, Mr. Whether they would be responsible based upon this.
Pardon?
Mr. Felix, they would, if what you're saying, if you're based upon your fact scenario, they would be responsible for that situation.
They would be?
Based upon that fact scenario.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I want on record, okay?
You should have a small test.
Check your will ahead of time.
They tested it 2 weeks ago.
Keep that on record.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, EPA was out there and they tested it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Felix.
Yes, I also have a question about Meadows Landing.
Okay, you have to,
Do you want,
does
do you want me to hold off until
the public
the
hearing.
presentation?
Anyone here has anything to say? We have 4 public hearings,
Right.
if you don't mind, Mr. Weber.
That's okay.
We have a public hearing regarding Meadows Landing. We have a public hearing regarding liquor license transfer. We have a public hearing regarding Meadows Landing. There's one other here,
And what-
and Wood. You can reserve your comments at that point in time of the public hearing, okay?
That's what I like.
Anything outside the public hearing, you're welcome to talk right now.
Anybody else want to? Anybody else? About 3 minutes? Mr.
Good evening. My name is Paul Winter. I reside at 1247 Locust Avenue. I have something to read to the supervisors and the residents of the township. Good evening. My name is Paul Winter, and I'm the president and a lieutenant for the South Strabane Fire Department. A lot of our members and their families have come this evening due to an item on this evening's agenda under new business to authorize the purchase of a used 2000 Pierce fire truck and equipment out of New York. We have been hearing many rumors that the township is looking to begin starting its own fire department, starting with purchasing of a fire apparatus and contracting with neighboring career fire departments and removing the volunteers. Dismissed at first because of ongoing continuation of working with them on an upcoming meeting next week between the board of directors of the department and the board of supervisors on working on the future of the fire service for South Strabane, and to believe the township would do that because of the amount of money the volunteers save this township and its residents. But here we are. So just to inform our residents, here's some information about South Strabane Fire Department. We are a nonprofit 501c3, and we are a combination department consisting of both career staff and volunteers. The fire department is owned and operated by the volunteers and has been since it was founded in 1962, making this its 59th anniversary. The department owns 2 fire stations, Station 1 on East Main and Station 2 on Oak Spring Road. The department also owns a brush truck, engine, rescue, ladder truck, 2 tankers, and all these apparatus. The fire department is funded mainly on fundraising from our community in ways of annual fund drives, weekly bingos, and hall rentals. The department also receives funds from the township to provide fire protection and rescue services to the residents, along with providing stations, fire apparatuses, and equipment for the career staff. The men and women of this department, both past and present, have worked hard over the decades of service to build and run this department to keep our community safe. Now, the township wants there to also be 24/7 staffing, which goes beyond our current 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Friday, which is without a doubt the best thing for any community. We get an instant response with no delay waiting on a volunteer. we have to leave our families and friends in the dead of night, in the middle of a birthday party, to drive to the station and answer the call and protect our community. This is something that I feel is either unknown, forgotten, or cared to overlook. But putting hundreds of hours of training and thousands of hours of service for this community. We do this outside of our full-time jobs and career because it is our duty, our passion, and we do it for free. The volunteers will never abandon this community that it serves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else with public comment?
Hi there, I'm Fred Allen, live at 820 Bud Street. I'm a 44-year member of the South Strabane Volunteer Fire Department, currently serving as their assistant chief and their treasurer. And I have some comments also and some questions for the supervisors. Seeing the agenda for tonight's meeting, one of the action items is for the supervisors and their intent to purchasing a used fire truck at a cost of $130,000. This comes as a great surprise to the volunteers of the South Strabane Fire Department. For the past 60+ years, the volunteer fire department has provided all the equipment needs for the fire emergency services to the township. The last 26 years, since the hiring of career firefighters, the volunteer department has permitted the township to use any and all of the volunteer-owned equipment with no questions asked. So the question needing asked are, why does the township feel it needs to purchase a fire truck with taxpayer money? Is the truck coming equipped? And how much more taxpayer money is it going to cost the taxpayers to equip this truck if it is not coming fully equipped? Outside tonight, there sits $1.5 million worth of firefighting equipment and trucks, and it's only partial of our fleet. And all of those trucks sitting out there are newer than the truck that you intend on purchasing tonight. Why did the supervisors not sit down and communicate with volunteer department any concerns about the equipment needs for the township? A recent study that the township conducted at a taxpayer cost of around $15,000 pointed out one of the problems was the lack of communication. But yet the supervisors are planning to purchase a fire truck with no communication with the volunteers or the career staff that they've hired. Where does the township intend on housing this fire truck? And what is their intended use for the truck? What is the intentions of the supervisors towards the volunteer department? There is a contract that renews each year automatically that the township will provide $110,000 to the volunteer fire department to provide fire protection services to the community to be paid in a quarterly allotments. But to date, the volunteer fire department has not received any money in 2021. I do not believe it is in the best interest of the taxpayers in South Strabane Township for the supervisors to waste tax dollars purchasing a 20-year-old fire truck when a sit-down discussion with the volunteer department and the career staff outlining the needs of how to fund purchasing and the equipment needs for the fire department in the township. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Anyone else? Ed, come on up.
My name is Ed Mazer. I'm a 24-year member of the Board of Supervisors. Some time ago, there was a study conducted to determine the means to have a department put together that somewhat resembled the dual department that is in North Strabane Township, where you have volunteers and paid firemen working together. An expert was brought in to facilitate this. The cost has already been given to you of what that was. I want to know from the board, was one of those recommendations of that expert to withhold the fire department's funding in the previous year until the month of November, when that money is due quarterly. This was during the pandemic, when the fire department had no means to generate the funds that it normally generates through its activities in bingo. So virtually, by shutting that money off till November, you put a stranglehold on the finances of the fire department. I would really like to know if you did this with the intent of pressuring the fire department to coming around to the ideas that you had in relation to a combined fire department. I don't really expect to get an answer on that, because I don't know who the powers that be are anymore. These people that are volunteers are supposedly, by some standards, heroes in this nation. The first responders. Yet this organization decides to shut off the money that they need in order to carry on the functionings of their department. Their monthly expenditures are somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 a month for electric, heat, all the things that go into keeping the equipment rolling. That's quite a chunk of money. The township puts up about $9,000 a month toward that. The rest of it comes from their efforts and their actions. Every piece of equipment sitting down there, every building, every square inch of land that is owned by that fire department was paid for by them without a dime from this township. The first thing that they have as equity in this fire department is a half interest in a brush truck for $25,000. I would like to ask the people of South Strabane.
Ed, 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
There was a movie once that had a fellow by the name of Nicholson in it. And one of his comments was, the truth, you can't handle the truth.
Thank you, Ed. Anyone else? 3 minutes.
Oh, and by the way, Mr. Stanek, what happened to my ability to speak as long as necessary? Because that was what I was told on the phone today. If you went over the 3 minutes, it was going to be a little bit okay.
Anyone else? 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Number 4, meeting minutes. We need a motion to approve the Board of Supervisors regular meeting minutes dated June 22nd, 2021. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Need a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lukatich. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Number 5. Financial business. Approval of payroll for the periods May 30th through June 12th, 2021, June 13th through June 26th, 2021, and June 7th through July 10th, 2021, and bills for the period June 19th through July 23rd, 2021. Need a motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lukatich. Need a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Number 6, announcements. Mr. Stanek, any announcements this evening for folks?
Community Park Steering Committee meeting will be rescheduled for tomorrow at 7 p.m. in this building. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Actually, I'd like to introduce Jim Sutter at the computer there. Projector is our new assistant to the township manager. Started with us earlier this month, and just wanted to welcome Jim to the team.
Hello.
Let's give them a little round of applause. Thanks a lot. Number 7, Township reports and presentations. Municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4 report. The Board of Supervisors allocates a period of time during this item for comments regarding the topic of stormwater. Each person addressing the Board of Supervisors asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Do we have any comments on MS4?
Really covered with stormwater.
Come on up. Sure.
Do you have any more of these?
Agenda.
Name and address.
Zach Morgan, 197 Van Station Road.
Hold on a second. Zach.
Yeah.
Can you give us a copy of the agenda?
Right here.
Hate to do this to you, but we get spread away. Say your name again, Township Manager, you get it down.
Okay. Yeah, Zach Morgan, 197 Van Station Road. Earlier this month, I emailed Brandon about stormwater coming off Main Street up at the intermediate school. And the way that it's set up is at the bottom of both driveways, it shoots across to the sidewalk, headed towards Billy Bell Park. So it collects all that runoff, plus a spring feeds into it. From there, it goes under Main Street and then disperses to the residents. Goes down through 155, or between 92A and 63 Main Street, to 155 Man Station Road's backyard, to 195's side yard, down to 195-7 Van Station Road, finally makes it to the creek at Lake Hawk. That's one heck of a path. I think that the storm drain needs to go the other way towards Laboratory Church, get into the storm drain there, which goes underneath Van Station to the creek, and it'll make its way there. It floods us out. I've done everything I can over the years, adding every 4-inch pipe that I can to alleviate the problem. I was told that Brandon wanted to have PennDOT look into it, but it's not PennDOT's problem. I think that was just a stall tactic, but it's fine. I see that we also don't really answer questions. I'm sure that that's the norm. So that's why I don't have really too much to say about everything. I don't come to these things, but I think that's a cop out
After
also.
the meeting, I'll talk to you about it, okay?
Huh?
After me, I'll talk about the stormwater. I want to see what's going on. I can give you some direction, all right? I need to talk to you more to find out what's going on.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, well, yeah. Also, I mean, we have road crew department that travels up and down these roads on a daily basis. And it's like, I think that they drive with their eyes closed. They see the falling limbs that are ready to fall on the cars. They see the storm drains that are piled over with garbage. I mean, nobody gets out and picks anything up or does anything. I do it. But maybe we get out of the truck every once in a while and touch something, but just an idea.
Zach, these things will be addressed. Okay?
Okay.
Just so you know, don't think it's in vain. You said these things.
Well, I see that, Washington Woods, I don't live in those neighborhoods. So those neighborhoods are going to be taken care of. We're out in the country. We get people's furniture, mattresses, and then we're told deal with it, so that kind of stuff doesn't happen in neighborhoods because it wouldn't be put up with, right?
All right,
Okay,
thank you, sir.
that's
I'll
all.
talk to you after the meeting, all right?
Thank you very much. Anyone else on stormwater? Thank you.
I'll just briefly second his comment. Nancy Gray, Laboratory, his comment that the storm drains don't get cleaned.
Okay, thank you. You get that down too, Brent?
Yep.
Thank you, Nancy. They will be addressed. Okay, any other comments on stormwater? Thank you, bud. Okay, Township Manager report.
So we're undergoing a firefighter recruitment process right now. It's underway. Deadline for applications is August 2nd. Physical agility test scheduled for August 7th and the 11th. Written exam is going to be September 22nd. Also, the budget calendar for 2022 is proposed for the board. If you want to review that, let me know, and we can put that on the agenda for next meeting. Also, the We have a report entitled the Victory Center Neighborhood Improvement District for Tanger Improvement A. It's the annual installment report, and assessment roll for the collection of assessments in 2021. That meeting was held last week on July 15th, and if you'd like to see the report, they're available upon request.
Thank you. You want to move on to the Secretary's Treasurer?
Sure. Secretary Treasurer's report submitted for your consideration.
Township Solicitor, any comments?
Yes, the office has been involved with planning issues for the township regarding various developments. Also, we're involved giving direction concerning the American Rescue Fund, which is kind of Byzantine in nature. Been involved with reviewing different SOPs for the police department. Also involved with reviewing some tax assessment decisions, and also been attending both planning commission meetings and the township meetings.
Thank you. Township Engineer, Kevin.
Thank you. You should have a copy of my report. We've also been very busy with planning commissions and doing a lot of developments that are coming through right now. And the other item to highlight is we've been assisting staff with Billy Bell Park, both on the administration of the grant and helping with the installation of contractors and public works.
Any board have any questions for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin. Apologize for not recognizing the stenographer this evening. Very well qualified, does a great job for us all the time. And I overlooked her when I introduced her. We need a roll call. Okay, on unfinished business, this is where she comes into play. Public hearing to consider an ordinance amending 245 of South Strabane zoning code, providing regulations for the keeping of wood piles as accessory structure used in all residential districts. Mr. Stanley, give a briefing before I turn this over to Mr. Makel.
Sure. So presented for the board's consideration tonight during a public hearing is the text amendment to the zoning code, establishing regulations for wood piles in residential districts only. The board may recall, following an unsuccessful attempt to reach a mutually agreeable resolution with the property owner of One Acacia Drive regarding the cutting and splitting of wood and overall maintenance of wood piles, a petition was received in March from Ms. Sabatini urging the board to adopt an ordinance to regulate the number, size, location, and storage of firewood and wood piles on residential property. At its meeting on March 23rd, the board unanimously directed the Planning Commission to consider an ordinance regulating wood piles. And since that time, the Planning Commission's met on several occasions. And recently on June 3rd, unanimously recommended the board approve the attached ordinance regarding wood piles in all residential districts pursuant to the following. Wood piles shall be no higher than 6 feet. Wood piles shall not occupy a footprint greater than 50 square feet in area. All wood piles shall comply with the setback requirements applicable to accessory structures in the zoning district in which they are located. No wood pile can be located in a front yard as defined in the zoning code, and no wood pile can be located between a principal structure and the front yard line of a lot. And any wood pile in existence as of September, which does not comply with the regulation, must be removed or placed in compliance within 1 year after written notice given by the zoning officer. So in preparation for tonight's hearing, the proposed text amendments forwarded to the County Planning Commission June 22nd. We received a response on the 28th. Legal notice was published in July 13th and July 20th editions of the OR. And if the board should adopt the proposed ordinance this evening, a copy will then be forwarded to the County Law Library within 30 days.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Mr. Makel.
Before we take testimony from anyone in the audience, I request the motion to adopt as Exhibit A the proposed ordinance itself that's been discussed by Mr. Stanek. Exhibit B would be the letter from Mr. Stanek to the Washington County Planning Commission requiring review of the same. The response would be Exhibit C from the Planning Commission from Mr. Theakston. Exhibit D would be the advertisements placed in the OR in terms of this proceeding. And also E is some responses from some public regarding the proposed ordinance itself. So if there's a motion to
move to approve exhibits A through E.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All in favor of the motions to approve those exhibits, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
At this point in time, it's time for people to give public comment upon the proposed ordinance. We're doing this right now. Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to make any comments or ask any questions regarding the same? If so, please take the podium, state your name, give your address, and give your statement. Also, just for the record, anyone who's going to testify in this proceeding, I request that you stand right now, raise your right hand, and be sworn in by the stenographer.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And this is about the ordinance concerning the wood piles. Okay? All right, go your name, sir, and address.
David Podolinsky,
Spell your last name, please.
Podolinsky.
Keep your voice up high so that she can take down what you're hearing.
Okay. I've been at my residence for over 19 years. We had to cut all the trees down to build our house. So I have wood. We burn wood all winter long. I burn, 50 degrees or below. My wife doesn't work, and that's how we heat our house. Our gas or our electric bill's been $60 a month over the winter. So my piles have been there for 19 years. The people that are complaining about it, which there's 8 neighbors that can see my wood pile, 6 have written letters, have called, done whatever. The other 2 people, haven't talked to these people in 19 years. 19 years. Okay. So there's over 1,500 townships in the state of Pennsylvania. There's only one firewood ordinance. One. Okay. I've been here 5 times, 5 meetings for this. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I cleaned up the bark. I lowered my piles. I made my piles smaller. I mean, I heat my house. I have almost 8 acres. They put a gas line through the back of my property. So I have big piles of logs that I'm going to cut. I'm going to split. I'm going to bring them to my house. I have 2 young kids. I'm trying to teach them the right way to grow up. I mean, I don't understand. The saddest thing about this whole thing is my kids come up to me and they say, why do they hate us so bad? I mean, why are they so mean to us? And I'm like, I don't know. Never done nothing to these people. And it's like, I share a driveway with one neighbor. They live a third of the distance from the person complaining. Okay. They could see my wood piles from me to you, maybe a little further than you. Okay. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I've cleaned up a bunch. I still have more to do. I can't get to this one pile because there's an underground bee's nest and I got stung. I mean, I have 5 recycling bins, okay? They recycle once a month in South Strabane. So you take 5 tubs, okay? It's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm gonna be building a garage, so it's gonna block out 2 of my wood piles, okay? And do I have to get permission from this person what color garage I have to build, or what kind of siding I can put on, or what kind of shingles? I mean, I don't understand why one person's getting the power. And then your 50-square foot thing, I have almost 8 acres. I mean, that should be on like a 1/4 acre lot. I know these people because I work for Comcast. I was at their house years ago. They burn wood. I mean, there's lots of people that burn wood. I'm not the only person. Ask these firefighters. My dad's been a firefighter for 45 years. When's the last time you went to a fire pile that caught on fire? Exactly. All the complaints that this person's brought up is just ridiculous. I mean, I put up a garden in front of my front side pile, that I made smaller because I'm going to be building a garage and I'm trying to teach my kids how to do, grow a garden. Next year, I'm putting in a bigger garden in a different place. Do I have to get a permit for this? I mean, it's just really ridiculous. So it's just my frustrations. It's, this is 5 times that I didn't do bedtime with my kids because of somebody complained about a wood pile. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr. Polinsky.
It's just ridiculous.
Any questions, Mr. Polinsky, by the board? Anyone have any questions?
I do. Dave.
Sorry.
Well, have you seen these items that Mr. Standing just read?
Yes.
Is there anything you can't live with there?
Yeah. I mean,
tell me what they are.
Well,
what you don't like there.
Well, there shouldn't be a limit on the size of pile. I mean, you know, when I lay pallets out, you know, my piles, you guys didn't have a problem with the pile before when I said 16 by 16, and I'll keep it 5 feet high. But you guys wanted to change the noise ordinance because make me only go from 9 to 5 p.m. Well, then change it through the whole township that landscapers and grass people can't go out. I never started chainsaw before 8 a.m. and I eat dinner at 5 p.m. So the noise thing, it's just a joke, you know, but if I want to have 3 wood piles, there shouldn't be a problem. I'll keep them 5 feet. I cleaned up my yard, come out, you came out once, you're more welcome to stop by. Like I said, I still have more to clean up. It's just, I got an underground bee's nest in the one area and I'm not dealing with it until the cooler weather, you know?
Dave, are most of your wood piles actually in your woods?
There's 2 right along the woods. There's 1 to the side of my house. The reason I keep the 1 to the side of the house, like this past winter, we had a lot of snow. My kids have 2 little wheelbarrows. They like to bring it down and restock the wood for my wife. And if it was down in the woods, I can't get down there.
How about at the top of your drive? There's a wood pile there.
Yeah, I put a garden and I put a 6-foot fence in front of it. That's where my garden's at. You can see a little bit of the wood pile.
I went out there yesterday and looked, and that's the only one I could see.
Yeah, there's 2 down below it. And like I said, there's a house that I share a driveway with that you saw how close that house is. They have no problem with nothing. The 2 people on either side of the driveway, the 2 people across the street. It's just, you know, I don't understand.
Any other questions for Mr. Podolinsky?
Yes. Mr. Stanek, would you clarify the thing where it says wood pile or wood piles? You have an S on it. Make it clear.
Letter B. Okay. Letter A. So wood piles shall be no higher than 6 feet.
So the S remains?
The S remains. You can have more than 1 wood. You can have as many wood piles as you want.
But the 5 feet by 10 feet, I just don't understand. You know, before you guys had no problem with 16 by 16. It's just, that's the size of tarps that I've been buying and that's what I put on top of there and, you know.
Okay, thanks.
So, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Podolinsky. Anybody else that wishes to say anything about the ordinance itself? Anyone? Please. Up there, sir. State your name.
My name is.
Were you sworn in also, by the way?
Pardon me?
Were you sworn in?
No, I wasn't.
Ms. Roseanne, swear in, please.
State your full name.
Angelo Sabatini.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, also your address for the record?
22 Robin Drive. I live, I'm one of the complaints of Mr. Podolinsky, which I think what he heats his house, but he also sells wood. Now, I don't care what he does, you know, but you don't need a wood pile as big as this room if you're heating your house. You know, and he says 19 years went by. That was the problem. We let it go too long and the wood pile keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the garden that he's talking about is not a garden. All it is a fence with weeds in it. So, you know.
Look at all the pumpkins, all the tomatoes.
Yeah.
Okay, he's talking right now.
But that's just what I have to say about it. You know, he says that 18 years went by. We should have put an end to it in the beginning. You know, and then he applied for, he's the one that's kind of started it because he applied for a business through the township to sell wood. Then that's just like slapping everybody in the face. I'll do whatever I want to do and screw everybody, screw you. That's the problem. That's the whole problem. The size of he can take the wood behind his house and he can stack it a mile high. Just I don't want to retire. I didn't work my whole life to retire to sit on my deck to look at his wood pile. Thank you.
That would be good for me.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about this ordinance itself? Were you sworn in, sir? Yep. Take the stand, take the podium. State your name and address.
Patrick Daly, 1505 East Bow Street.
Patrick what?
Patrick
Daly.
Okay.
Daily. Yep. I just, you know, what I'm going to say here it's not going to make a difference, but I just know that Dave and Chris have tried to work with the township. And I just feel that, you know, I live in this township and I wouldn't want one of my neighbors to have an issue. I would hope that they would come to me and try to work it out rather than be here. But I know that, you know, he has tried to comply to work with what you guys have requested of him. And I just think that it's, you know, a couple people, and I know, you know, I don't know him personally, but I know the original person with the issue here had all kind of people sign this petition to get this proposal put through, this ordinance. And I also know that a lot of those people don't even live in Windsor Highlands. We're on the opposite side of Windsor Highlands. So to me, that's my, you know, I didn't really, because I'm not Dave's neighbor. I didn't want to come down to make anything, you know, say anything, but having known that everyone else is making, you know, it's like a popularity contest almost. Like, I'm going to get this person to sign this when they live nowhere near. Dave's wood piles have no effect on them. So I just had to come down here and just state that I know that, again, I think that this should have been able to be worked out outside of this. But now that the township's actually putting this ordinance in, it's like, it's just crazy to me that a couple of people complaining about something gets proposed and now it could affect anyone in this township. I just know that he's tried to work with the township, is what I want to say. So, okay.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about the ordinance? Raise your hand.
We have an individual over Zoom whenever we get to.
All right, anyone else in the public have any, take the podium, ma'am, state your name and address. You were sworn, because I think I saw you.
I was. Linda Rumbaugh. I live on Robin Drive, also 5 Robin Drive. This really doesn't affect me at all, and I'm really not here for this, but I saw this came up on Facebook, and I thought I needed to come here and at least tell you what I thought about it. I think everybody can agree, whether you're on the left, the right, with the way politics have gone this year, that the federal and state government have really overstated their bounds and have overreached and caused a lot of problems and caused a lot of fighting even among families. So I would expect more from our local government, not to make more rules. We don't need any more rules. So I'm urging you to vote no on the ordinance. But it does say it with an S, you said, you're allowed more than one pile?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something else? Wait, no. You don't ask questions of her. She's done. Anybody here in the public have any more questions or comments about the ordinance? Mr. Sapke, you have 1 second, 30 seconds.
She didn't like what she saw with her neighbors and she put a fence up.
Well, maybe you should do the same.
Okay, no interaction. All right, we have somebody on Zoom, or what do you call this thing? All right. Okay, there's somebody on Zoom. Could you state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Kristen Podolinsky and I live at 1 Acacia Drive. Can you hear me?
We can, and I assume you're Mr. Podolinsky's wife?
Yes, I am.
Did you raise your right hand and be sworn in, please?
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God.
There you go. Very good. All right, go ahead, ma'am.
I want to make a couple comments based on some things that were said. First of all, somebody in the opening here mentioned that Sharon had circulated a petition. When she did that, someone recommended to me that I make an online petition on change.org, which I did. And it received almost twice as many signatures as Sharon's in a fraction of the time. And I think that's important for everybody to know. Okay.
One second, that's one of the exhibits, okay?
Okay, I can't see your exhibit, so I didn't know. I also want to mention, you know, the way our house laid out is not typical of what you see in a neighborhood. Our front of our house does not face towards the street. The side of our house faces the street. So if you say we have a wood pile in the front of our house, that is true, but it's between our house and our neighbor's house. It's not facing towards the street, and it is hidden by a garden. And speaking of the garden, you know, there are plenty of people in this neighborhood that have gardens, and we planted a garden. And now the people that are complaining about our firewood, did you hear him? He just said, now he's complaining about our garden because it grew too well. We do. We have a lot of pumpkins, and pumpkins are vines and they spread. Dave already said we want to make it bigger next year, but it just shows you that no matter what you do, it's not good enough. We blocked the wood, we made a garden, and now he has a problem with that. Okay? So where does it end? Where does it end? What if I get new siding and he doesn't like the color and Sharon doesn't like the color? Are we gonna be having no meetings over this? The other thing I want to say is I noticed that the firemen did say that they have not responded to any calls that have began in a pile of firewood. And I think that's important to note too. When you look at, I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the emails I sent you. I hope so. But finally, the other thing I want to say is you're saying it doesn't matter how many piles there are. So there could be multiple piles, but in the proposed ordinance, it says a maximum of 50 square feet. So yeah, that's a huge limit on how much. I mean, you can have one 10 by 5, or you can have two smaller piles that still equal 10 by 5. So you could have one 10 by 5 or two 5 by 2.5 piles. That's teensy tiny and not enough for people to use for the entire winter. And this affects not just Sharon having to look at firewood or her husband having to sit on his deck and look at firewood. This affects the entire township and several people that burn throughout the township, and they should not be limited based on what Sharon and her husband like looking at or don't like looking at.
Patty Spolinsky?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions? Any further questions, comments? Were you sworn in? Take the podium, please. State your name and address. Okay, sorry, swear in first.
Sharon.
What's your name?
Sharon Sabatini.
Sharon Sabatini. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
State your name and address.
Sharon Sabatini, 22 Robin Drive. I am the one who initiated this, okay? I went through all the proper channels. I discussed with Brandon what my options were, okay? So that's why I proposed or went and petitioned the ordinance, or they went and got signatures for the petition, okay? I am not trying to give you a hard time. If you would look at me, that would be nice, Dave. Okay, I am not, okay.
I got nothing nice to say to you. I mean.
Okay,
Well,
okay,
gee,
okay.
okay,
Look at us.
yeah. I'm not trying to give him a hard time. I'm not trying to give her a hard time. All I wanted to do is to have some restriction as to the wood piles that were allowed on this property. And there were pictures sent to you a number of times. They were huge, okay? They were huge, okay? And that is in my backyard. I don't care what color siding you put on your house. I don't care about the garden. That's wonderful that you're being together with your children. That's awesome. I don't care what you plant. It's not like that, okay? The only thing I don't want to look at is a big, huge wood pile behind my house, okay? And it's not just wood piles, it's the debris, it's the trash cans, it's just a variety of things. And I know even at the planning commission meeting, one of the commission officers made a comment, which was, you remember the comment. Okay, so it's not just me saying what the property looks like, okay? So it's getting carried away, and all I wanted to do is to get this done in a professional, correct, legal manner, okay? That's all. I have nothing against him or his family, his wife. I just want it to be cleaned up. And I know you mentioned that you went back there and you couldn't see the wood pile, the other wood pile. There's a lot of foliage back there. So once that all dies, it's very clear. You can see that as well. It is very clear. So that's all I have to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from anybody in the public about this ordinance? Seeing none at this point in time, is there a motion to close the testimony?
Move to close the testimony.
Second. Mr. Maple.
Yes.
Before we do that, there was a number of hands that went up here. Are they for all hearings?
I think what they did, some of these gentlemen raised their hands.
I thought it was for all the hearings.
No, this is just the wood car.
I'm good.
They weren't listening, because they're on their fancy phones. Some of these people like, they're not listening. All right, so.
Mr. Byrd has
I'm
moved
sorry.
to close the hearing. Mr. Murphy seconded. Is there any discussion from folks here to address the board members? All in favor of closing the hearing, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried, motion carried 5-0.
So you have before you now the question about what to do with this ordinance.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
I think he has a motion made up, Mr. Maple.
No, that's on.
That's about the other issue.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance.
So you make a motion to approve the ordinance as advertised. Okay. There's a motion to adopt, approve the ordinance as advertised.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. We have a first, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion on this?
I have a question. I'd like to know why two neighbors can't get together and talk about this and work this out. Because we don't have any problem with wood piles in this township. It's neighbor against neighbor. And I'd really like to know why that is. Why can't you people get together and discuss this and come up with a resolution?
You see that there's no reason, okay? We should not even be here because I would have enough respect for my neighbor not to pile wood everywhere all over the creation and appreciate the property.
If he keeps the wood in, he has 8 acres of ground, and if he would put his wood piles in the woods, because just like I said, I went down there, the only one I could see was at the top of the drive, that wood pile.
Yeah, that's enough.
And most of the year, you can't see that back there.
Yeah, you can see it all the
And
time.
clean his property up a little bit. Could you get together and discuss this? Because this ordinance is gonna affect the whole township. You understand that?
I understand. I didn't even want it to go this far. All I wanted to do was if somebody would come to me and say, Angela, your yard looks like hell, could you clean it up? I would clean it up. If you came to me,
I agree.
you know, but you can't do all the things that has been going on with this meeting and stuff. Like that would be like say like I like gardening. I plow my whole yard up and I fill it full of common manure and I stink the whole neighborhood up. Now, is that the right thing to do for the neighborhood?
No.
Okay,
No,
but
I
I would
agree.
never do that because I would have enough respect for my neighbors not to do that. Okay, and that's all we asked for, you know? We didn't ask to be harassed. We didn't ask for his wife to take videos of me and my grandchildren around the gas fireplace or and stuff like that. I never harassed him. I never took pictures of him piling wood on his truck and selling wood. I was professional. We were professional about the whole thing. That's all we wanted. Thank you.
Gentlemen, if you mind, go 5 minutes in executive session, please. Go in the back there for a minute. I'd like to talk to you guys, okay?
So this is a motion to deliberate on the ordinance, the zoning ordinance itself,
Correct.
correct?
We'll be back, we'll be back. Come on, you guys. We'll be right back, I guarantee you.
Here's the problem. We only have evidence.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
All townships.
You see what I have in my backyard? Yeah, I need to go. I did, I showed him all. Yeah.
What happened?
This is my property. And they just, they sort of so that's what I'm going now we got. So they tore it down and they're gonna leave it. And they're right next door. There's a guy. I don't think I'm wrong. I would love to see nice
So you couldn't see them in this anyway because it was. And then they had to mitigate it to say that they were pushing. They
Planning commission. I don't know, they have all the. Oh. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve. You said, Mr. Murphy? Do we have a second on that?
You did.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Any further discussion on the situation? Any clarification necessary, Mr. Mickle?
None.
Okay.
We have a roll call vote.
Yeah, we can. We'll call vote then on this.
Mr. Burns,
Aye. Yes.
Mr. Grigo,
Aye.
Mr. Lukatich.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Chair Weber.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, new business, number 9. Motion authorizing the purchase of a Pierce Quantum Fire Rescue apparatus from the Village of Falconer, New York, and associated equipment in the amount of $130,000. Mr. Stanek, would you give a brief review? I turn it over to the board.
So we have presented for the board's consideration this evening is a motion authorizing the purchase of a Pierce Quantum Fire Rescue apparatus in the Village of Falconer, New York, and associated equipment in the amount of $130,000. To clarify from the comments we heard earlier, the total package is $130,000. The fire truck is $60,000, and then the associated equipment that will be with the outfit to $130,000. But the total price, $60,000, will be used to purchase the apparatus. The board is aware the purpose of the purchase is to ensure that the level of fire and emergency medical services provided to the community are maintained at a level responsive to the township's continued growth.
Motion, please.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Lukatich. Any further discussion on the issue? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay. Letter B. Public hearing to consider a motion granting conditional use approval for New Potato Creek Holdings LLC, tidal wave car wash, for a new car wash at 370 Washington Road, parcel number 600-005-13-00-0016-01 in the C2 commercial zoning district. Mr. Stanley, give a briefing before we ask Mr. Baker to take care.
Sure. On May 10th, we received a conditional use application from New Potato Creek Holdings LLC, also for a conditional use to allow the operation of car wash at the vacant parcel. It's 370 Washington Road. This is a tidal wave car wash entering the Pittsburgh market. The Planning Commission had conducted their hearing and recommended the board approve, and it's presented tonight for the conditional use hearing. Please know that land development and subdivision of the parcel will proceed at the Planning Commission meeting next week.
Mr. Stanley, before I turn it over to Mr. Mickle, is the applicant present?
Mr. McCall is.
Thank you. Mr. Mickle, go ahead.
At this point in time, some general housekeeping. I'd like to have the following items placed into evidence. Exhibit A would be the document, the application presented by the applicant. Exhibit B will be some information concerning tidal wave auto spa. Exhibit B will be a traffic impact statement assessment prepared for the tidal wave auto spa. Exhibit D will be a letter from South Strabane Township to Chair Chelsea Harity of Pittsburgh, PA zoning verification letter from Mr. Stanek. Exhibit E will be a two-page document showing the plans for the tidal wave facility. Exhibit F will be a letter from KLH Engineering concerning dated June 1st, 2021, concerning the conditional use application review by the Township Engineer. Exhibit G will be the advertising or proof of publication, replacement of the notices in the Observer Reporter for today's proceeding. Exhibit H will be the notification of public hearing for the tidal wave car wash proceeding for today. That's sent to the people within the appropriate distance. Exhibit I will be the minutes from the South Bay Township Planning Commission. I'm recommending the same.
Move to accept exhibits A through I.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
At this point in time, the applicant is you here, are you here, sir? Do you have somebody else with you? Yes. Go to the podium. Both of you, please. And what I can both of you do before you say anything, I want you to raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Gentleman without the tie, would you state your name and address?
Sure. Justin McCall with the law firm of McGrath McCall in Pittsburgh. Our office address is 4 Gateway Center, Liberty Avenue in Pittsburgh.
And the gentleman with the tie, state your name and address.
Pat DiNardo with Pannoni Associates at 750 Holiday Drive in Pittsburgh, PA.
All right. Who's making the presentation, Mr. McCall?
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having us. Again, Justin McCall. We are local counsel for New Potato Creek Holdings, which is a real estate holding company for Tidal Wave Auto Spa. We're seeking conditional use approval, as Mr. Stanek indicated. Land development and subdivision approvals forthcoming, and everything's been filed, and we'll proceed with hearings on that as soon as next week. Next week. Just by way of very brief background, Tidal Wave Auto Spa has been around since 2004. They're based out of Macon, Georgia. They have 65 locations. Most of those locations are in the South or the Midwest. We're working with them as local counsel on any number of projects that they're pursuing in and around Pennsylvania, a lot in Western Pennsylvania. And Mr. DiNardo with Pannoni has been working with them as well. So they're focused on expansion. They're really focused on Pittsburgh, and this property is a really good option for them. It is an expensive option for them, which is why we're doing a subdivision, and we're going to propose to potentially put another location or another business, another parcel next to it to be sold off and used separately. Tidal Wave is, they are a recognized leader in the express exterior car wash business. They built an attractive facility. We've given you some elevations on this. They go above and beyond as it relates to the appeasability of the property. The landscaping is impeccable. So the property in question, it's located in a C2 commercial district. It is vacant ground. A car wash is a permitted use within a C2 district as a conditional use. It is subject to the requirements of 246-116 of the zoning code. And we submit that our car wash, the proposed use there, does in fact meet all those requirements. And maybe we can put up the site plan that what we've done on the site plan is in the bottom right-hand corner, and we'll get this up for everyone to look at. In the bottom right-hand corner, we've listed letters A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those correspond to the 6 requirements that you need to meet in order to have conditional use approval for a car wash. And I'll run through those briefly. I'm happy to answer any questions, and certainly Mr. DiNardo is happy to answer any questions, but some of these are fairly obvious and unquestioned. If anyone has any other questions, we're certainly happy to answer those. But the 6 requirements, very briefly, are the automated car wash facility has to be in a completely enclosed building. That is number A, and that is right here, and we show this is, of course, a completely enclosed building. There's not issues on that. The facility is not located within 300 feet of an R1, R2, R3, or R4 district. If they are, there's certain noise and noise requirements that have to be met. We are not located within that district, so they're quite frankly not applicable to the project. Water drainage from the operations. You know, there's requirements that nothing flow onto berms and there be no stormwater or water runoff problems. All the water in this facility has a water reclaim system, okay? And we've sort of identified that and where it'll be as letter C on this exhibit. So of course, there'll be no water that escapes the facility, quite frankly. Standing spaces are required, okay? And we show the standing spaces here. It's within the entryway. You know, we have a lot of stacking, as you'll see. There's plenty of stacking that I can't envision any problems, but yes.
How many cars can you stack on site?
Do you know that off the top of your head, Pat?
On site, I would say there's 2 lanes going along here, and I believe each of these can handle at least 10 and then maybe, you know, additional 5 going in approximately.
Thank you.
What's the time, like, when they would enter till they get out? How long would that be? A minute, 30 seconds, 5 minutes?
It's a good question. I don't want to pretend I know the answer when I don't, so I won't. My understanding it is typical of an exterior car wash that you had been in, that is a new facility, right? And I have a membership to one on Washington Road in McMurray. Takes about 45 seconds, I would say. And I think this is consistent, although I can't say that with any level of certainty. So anyway, so we do have standing spaces. We have standing spaces here within 125 feet and 150 feet. Okay, that's a requirement under the code. The facility will be connected, I'm sorry, to public sanitary and stormwater. Again, we show it on here, but in light of its location, it's a pretty obvious requirement that they can meet. And all driveway entrances need to be at least 30 feet from a right-of-way line at the intersection of any public streets. We are 570 feet from the nearest intersection, which is really the main intersection into the Trinity Point project. So those are the requirements. We believe we meet them. We don't believe they're controversial. We don't think there's any question that we meet them. So we're respectfully asking for your approval.
Any more questions for Mr. McCall from the board members?
How many cars do you think you'll be doing a day?
I feel like I know this answer somewhere in the materials that I have from the client. I don't know. I will say they employ 8 to 15 people at any given time. They're open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Okay, so it's not a 24-hour.
It's not 24 hours. I mean, you only be able to get through it whenever there's employees, staff, but they are there 7 days a week, 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening.
Yeah, 19, that's a busy avenue there. Thing I would be worried about are cars that are backing, they're trying to get into the car wash and they can't get in off the road far enough because there's a facility at the top of the hill there. And it can only take maybe 3 cars per lane, and then the cars are out on 19.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you'll see here, this is Washington Road. The entrance in off of here right now, as shown, and we're talking to the neighbors about maybe some other access points, but as of now, our access is right in, right out off of Washington Road. We have all of this lane and all of this.
And it could be double.
Yes, at this point, I can't tell you how many cars that is off the top of my head, but that's a lot. I would be really surprised if we even got close to causing any traffic backup.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Commissioner McCall?
Couple, can I ask Kevin, any egress or egress, do they have to have anything like that coming off of 19 where people can accelerate up and accelerate down to go in there?
No,
Or
not
just
for
gonna
the,
stop them?
I'm sorry, yeah, not for the level of traffic that they're looking for. These cell lanes are more for your larger, traffic generators.
Yeah, and we did submit a traffic study. I mean, it's the addition, we're not causing much in the way of additional traffic. I mean, not that doesn't address stacking, but
I think you probably have enough. I was just asking the question. And then I take it since I take it you don't own it, or you're just representing somebody, both you and Mr. Denardo.
yeah, we're local counsel. Again, they're based out of Georgia, so their development teams down there. They have their own engineers down there, and they have their own lawyers down there. But Mr. Denardo and I are both their local Pennsylvania counsel for projects in the North Hills, the South Hills, in the East, Central PA. We're working with them on a number of different projects. So we know a lot, but probably not everything.
Not enough. Here's my question. And I'm certain this wouldn't have any decision on which way I vote, because I wouldn't, but, and you don't own them, they're down there. Would there be any possibility, you could ask them this, if there are, and even if it would be at a reduced cost, if our police could run their cars through once a week or something?
Oh, I'd be sure to ask them.
Public, thing, we were trying to get somebody to do that, so.
I would be sure to ask them, and I would sure they'd be receptive
Just
to
for the
it.
record, that's not a stipulation.
No.
Thank you, counsel. Yeah, they are very philanthropic, and if you go to their website, again, the details escape me, but they do fundraisers, and they do days where they donate all the proceeds to XYZ organizations. So I can't speak to them all, but I'm sure they'd be interested.
Have you made an application to HOP yet?
They have. They're in that process. Do you have any more insight on that? And when I say an application,
For an HOP?
yeah, I understand. I don't know that they made the
Yeah,
application.
we are making the application this week. We've already gone through the traffic impact study with PennDOT already. And that's where, with the entrance, we made sure it complied with what PennDOT was requesting, the right in, right out onto Washington Road.
So that's still pending then? the HOP?
It's still pending, but everything is, moving forward that way.
Any other questions?
Yeah, they do. I got them Russ has one. Mr. Stanley,
Yes.
just to clear it up for the public, is this located next to the old bowling alley?
Yes, this is between the old Route 19 Bowl and the Aspen Dental Building.
Just so the folks know. Okay, Russ.
Kevin, if I'm not mistaken, there's a major stormwater pipe. And that's why the other structures were built on the side, because it collects all the stormwater. This structure looks like it's going to be right on top of that pipe. And whose pipe and who's responsible for it? That would be the property owners for the development.
Yes, all these would be privately owned.
I mean, it's going to be built on top of the stormwater pipe.
Sure. Could you just point that out?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The stormwater pipe currently, can't see it on here, it goes underneath where the proposed building is. As part of our submission with the local conservation district, we're going to be submitting an application to relocate that pipe away from underneath the building. So it won't be located on the building, we'll be relocated a portion around it.
The reason I asked this question is we have the issue on the other side of town with that pipe down there. We're getting sued right now. Township is. Who owns that stormwater drain right there? That stormwater pipe, who owns what the Russ is talking about?
I believe that was put in the development of Walmart. Originally went in because when the bowling alley was there, the inlet pipe was at the end and exited on both sides of the parking lot for the bowling alley. That has been developed and extended, and I think that would be the property owner's responsibility. It's
Is
not a
there
township pipe.
capacity in that stormwater pipe for additional stormwater or not? Check that out.
Yeah, we've analyzed it and they're designed for the actual development, meets the township requirements for that.
Okay. Any other questions, this gentleman?
Yeah. Will you be sure to go into more detail on that during the land development process?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think the planning commission had already prompted you on something like that as well.
Yes, that was discussed at the hearing.
No further questions, Mr. Gentleman? And the township engineers reviewed this and made recommendation for approval, correct? That's correct. Anybody in the public have any questions or comments regarding this project? Please take the podium. State it down. Any questions or comments from the public? At this point in time, since there's no other questions or comments, the motion to close the testimony, Mr. Burns?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Lucas, thank you. All in favor of closing the hearing, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
So if I can help you with this, Mr. Weber. So motion to approve the application submitted by the applicant, subject that the applicant comply with all township ordinances, rules, and regulations, and that the approval of this application is not to be construed by the application as a approval of any further subdivisions and/or development agreements, plus this one too, because now Mr. Grego brought that up to my attention, that the approval of this application does not mean the township approves or takes responsibility for that private stormwater drain in that area. Okay, that should be your motion.
Move to approve with the stipulations.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Need a second, please.
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Murphy. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, let's move on. Letter C, public hearing to consider a motion granting conditional use approval and tentative plan residential development approval for Meadows Landing Associates LP for the Meadows Landing planned residential development located along Landing Drive and US Route 19. Parcel number 600-00-00-00-0017-18 in the R4 residential zoning district. Mr. Standing, as usual, give a briefing, and we'll turn over to Mr. Baker.
Perfect. Just so everybody is clear off the bat, this is a public hearing for a conditional use permit as well as tentative PRD approval. So before you is the Meadows Landing planned residential development. We have seen this through a rezoning process or a pre-application process, master plan process, and a rezoning process. And just to summarize the summary for the development, 168 acres, conducted in 3 phases, will consist of a mixture of townhomes, duplexes, and single-family detached units for a total of 346 units. Is that correct, Alan?
Yes.
Okay. This represents a change to the approved master plan to now include 20 additional townhouse units and 8 less duplex units for a total of 12 additional units. And just note, any change in density following tentative PRD approval will most likely require additional public hearings. Some of the features of this site or this development include 56% of the property is going to remain open space. 4 acres of low impact active recreation areas provided. That's 2 acres required or 250 square feet per unit, and includes a swimming pool and a clubhouse amenities, associated parking, walking trails, sidewalks along both sides of the street where homes are located. 3 parking lots throughout the development with lighting, more or less located around the townhouse and duplex units. Stormwater management ponds and underground conveyance system. The township would look to adopt the conveyance system, but not the pond. Streets that will be dedicated to the township include Chase Street, Lincoln Street, Jack Drive, Ashton Street, Adams Street, Logan Drive, and existing Helen Drive, the signalized intersection at Route 19. And future street access from Lincoln Street to Fisher Road should the property to the north and west develop. Planning Commission recommended conditional use approval, tentative PRD approval on June 3rd. And the proposed development is before the supervisors tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Standing. Mr. Maple?
Yes, Mr. Weber. I'm requesting that the Township Board of Supervisors makes a motion to approve the following exhibits. Exhibit A would be the application as set forth by Mr. Stanek. Exhibit B will be the application subdivision approval. Exhibit C will be a notification of public hearing dated July 13th. Exhibit D will be the proof of publications for today's proceeding. Exhibit E will be the letter from Washington County Planning Commission to the Township dated June 16, 2021. Exhibit F will be a letter dated July 19, 2021, from KLH Engineering concerning the application itself. Exhibit G will be a letter from Scheffler and Company Engineering Surveying and so forth regarding the application itself. Exhibit H will be another letter from KLH Engineers dated May 25th, 2021. Exhibit I will be the Planning Commission approved meeting minutes. And Exhibit J will be a copy of the master plan for the same period. Is there a motion to approve those exhibits?
Move to accept exhibits A through J.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Luke. Okay, Mr. Luke, thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Good.
Yes, Mr. Shannon.
Just to clarify, Exhibit A, the application also includes the plan sets, the PowerPoint
Correct.
presentation. Thank you.
I'm just trying to short other change, but we've been on it pretty late. All right. Who's the
I was gonna, can I ask a question?
not right now, ma'am.
Okay.
Who's the applicant in this situation? You have just yourself?
No, I have several people here that I will introduce.
All right. Go up to the podium, please,
Yes, sir.
all three of you. Is it all three of you guys?
More than three.
More than three. More than three. They snuck in on me.
It's
It's a six-pack.
already 25 after 8.
We're not all gonna talk.
Just feel we should say less is best, right, Bracken?
I'm gonna do most of the talking. I brought these guys in case you have specific questions that I can't answer.
All right, so what don't you do at this point in time, all 5 of you, raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Gentleman with the blue shirt, state your name and address.
My name is Alan Beachy. I live at 126 Saddlebrook Drive
Spell
in
your last name, please.
Beechay.
Gentleman in the green shirt behind you looks disgruntled.
You know him? Not any longer. Graham Ferry, Ferry from Scheffler and Company.
Guy in the purple shirt.
Bud Scheffler, Scheffler and Company.
White shirt, blue shirt,
Chuck Worcester, Worcester and Associates.
guy in the white shirt.
Hal Kessler, Meadows Landing Associates.
All right. Sir, Mr. Beachy?
Yes, sir.
Make your presentation.
Thank you. Do you want me to run through the PowerPoint? Because you covered.
Yes. I would
Okay.
recommend you do so.
Okay.
Have you provided it?
You had it from Planning Commission. We didn't change
Okay, same
anything
one?
on it.
Jim, can you bring that up?
From the planning commission forward, correct?
Correct.
Maybe.
I'm sorry?
It would be May.
What's the name of the file?
Meadows Landing.
I'm sorry, June, June.
Yeah.
Don't see a PowerPoint.
That's it. Thank you. Okay, excuse me, Meadows Landing. It's a planned residential development. As Mr. Stanek explained to you, we've been through several processes, including rezoning from C2 to R4. That rezoning involved a portion of the holdings out there. Everybody familiar with the site, where the site is? We're about halfway between Racetrack Road and Manifold Road. We front on Route 19. We're behind the Speedway. Everybody knows where the Speedway is. So the frontage of the existing land was not rezoned to R4. It will remain C2. If you've all driven past there, the pads are already in for future commercial uses, and the residential's behind that. We extend the roads. We extend the existing roads with the existing frontage back and through the development. So we don't have any activities on Route 19. I have Mr. Wooster with me from Wooster Associates. Way back at the beginning, we were asked to look at the traffic impacts, and it turned out that the study that was originally done was for the property when it was all going to be commercial. So they re-looked at the numbers. That's a good slide with the total. Yeah, I'm going to get to that here real fast. The study showed that the impacts of residential were much less than the commercial that would have been there. So the study and then any improvements that were already constructed were fine. So we didn't do any more studies at that point. There we go. As Brandon said, we have 3 phases with a total of 346 units. It's a combination of single-family dwellings, duplexes, and townhouses. The plan that is in front of you this evening is almost identical to the first one you saw, the master plan you saw with the rezoning. The very small difference is that the end user, Ryan Holmes, wanted us to redistribute some of the townhouses. So each phase includes each product. So people have a choice at each phase, whether they want a single or a duplex or a townhouse. So we removed those around and we ended up with a few more units than the master plan, but the street system didn't change with the exception of, and I don't remember if it was this board or the planning commission that first brought it up, but they asked us to look at access, future access at the rear of the property towards Fisher Road, which we did. We even did some grading plans to show that it was physically possible to build a road from one end to the other. That's included in these drawings too. Give me 2 slides. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. The total area of the project you're looking at is 142 acres. Less the 26 acres of steep slopes brings us to a net acreage of 116. We have 346 units. The total density is about dead on 3 units per acre. In R4, we're allowed 12, so we're way under the density. Next slide, please. COS, common open space. We're required to have 20% or 28.5 acres. I have 79.5 acres, so quite much more open space. I'm at 56% where 20% is required. And then the rest of those numbers, we don't even come close to meeting. Stormwater in the COS, and we're way under that. COS covered by water, 50% max. I have 0. The next slide, please. That's limitations on what you can have in and out of the common open space. I'm limited to slopes of, or required to have slopes less than 15% of 11 acres. I have almost 30. And then the low impact, as Mr. Stanek referred to, we're required to have 2 acres. We have about 4 acres, and that's in the rear of the clubhouse. There's an existing flat area that we can use for ball fields or anything the HOA wants to do. The grading's already in place for that. Yeah, 2 more slides. Yeah, that kind of shows you. Yeah, that shows you the clubhouse area and that flatter section. It's like a bowl down from the the proposed houses with the 2 acres of open space for the ball fields or whatever in the back. Next slide. This is the report from Wooster saying that, you know, because we went from commercial traffic to residential traffic, there's no additional impacts. It's actually less now. And then the next few slides are just renderings of the type of homes that Ryan Holmes the models that they're going to offer on this development. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed where we're at now. We're working on the sewer. There's a small issue with, there's a project that the sewer authority has with Ouija to upgrade the upgrade the force main from the manifold pump station to the plant. There's a section that needs upgraded and they don't have enough money, basically. So we've offered to meet with them. In fact, tomorrow night is the next meeting. We're meeting with them to provide the additional funding. Both my client, Hal Kessler, and then we've also brought in Steve Victor and his client on Burkett Manor. So we're all going to get together and play nice and see that this project gets done, or at least that's our goal, because it's for the benefit of everybody, quite frankly. Water line, I've had initial meetings with Pennsylvania American. One of the things they wanted me to do was go over the hydrant placement. So I met with your fire chief and we went over those placements and he asked for some revisions and I added a couple more hydrants where he wanted them. And I've resubmitted plans to him on that. So, and then with the next remaining permit is the Npds permit for the stormwater. I had a preliminary meeting with the Washington County Conservation District and representatives of DEP. As you're aware, there's been issues with the site in the past. So we're all working together to make sure that that doesn't happen again. One of the things we did, and you know, you can ask your engineer here in a second. One of the things we did was we brought the previous designs up to today's code. So we didn't try to like fix it. We started at scratch, like it was just, you know, vacant land out there. And we brought all the numbers up to today's code, both for the township stormwater, that includes the 80% reduction that's now in the code that wasn't back then. We comply with that, and all the new NPDS regulations. So we'll be finishing up our NPDS permit here shortly and look to go to construction here in a few months. I will take any questions. Yes, sir.
There is land set aside that's identified as PHMC conservation. I believe that's Pennsylvania History and Museum Commission.
Yes.
Would you?
In the past, I wasn't involved in this, but in the past, those areas were identified as sensitive for Native American, and it was studied.
Burial ground or something?
I don't know. Okay. I don't have the reports. I hooked up with Brandon and I don't even know if Brandon talked to him, but we looked into it with the Carnegie Museum, the anthropology department, and we talked to a doctor there, and she kind of got mad. She said, "Why does everybody keep calling it an Indian burial ground?" And I said, I don't know. And she said she didn't think that they had found that, but there's enough Indian relics out there that Carnegie Museum had gotten involved back then. And one of the things they ended up doing was delineating where that area was and then requiring that 200-foot buffer around it. And we just stayed out of it. So my extent of knowledge on this is, here's this line that everybody agreed upon 10 years ago, just stay out of it. And we did.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any of the board members?
Sir, your clubhouse swimming pool area, how many square feet is the clubhouse and how big is that swimming pool?
I just put in a placeholder for that. I have drawn about a 2,500 square foot townhouse. That's kind of typical. What did I say? Oh. Clubhouse for, that's typically on this size plan, what we use in our other Ryan plans. And the pool, do you remember?
40 by 60, something like that.
40 by 60, something like that. Yeah, it's a nice pool. Ryan usually does a nice job on that because they're trying to sell you a home, and who doesn't want their kids to be able to go play in a nice pool? So,
is the HOA going to be responsible for the street lights?
Yeah, the HOA is responsible for all the Yeah, all the lighting in that plan. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they pick up the power.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Tell me about that road again, that back road that you can make connection where the Fisher Road or something?
That's for someday for someone else to build that. What we did was leave a gap in the lots so it's open space from what will be your public road someday. Let's say in 10 years that gets developed, there'll be the right of way to go from your public road all the way to Fisher Road.
Okay, what about distance is that? You know, do you have that figured out? The distance
From my road to Fisher Road?
Is that a good long distance?
It's about 1,000 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that gonna go through the conservation area?
No, it comes close, but the lots I decided to eliminate, I brought them down around far enough, and I showed a grading plan that we can actually grade that road in without touching that conservation area.
You feel pretty good about the two roads leading to Route 19 that are take care of the community pretty well? Have you
Yeah.
thought that out a little bit?
Yeah, that was one of the things that we had Wooster look at, and they'll be fine. We don't need any improvements. We don't even have to involve PennDOT because of the percentages.
Yeah, tell us about the walking trail. He just gave me.
Oh.
The walking trail, it goes throughout the community? Can you show us that?
Yeah, I can.
And was any connecting to any other area? We'll be able to connect to some other area?
If you have another housing plan that is built next to it.
Yeah.
Can you connect that trail into theirs, or would that HOA want to
No.
just have that for
We
their?
looked at that with planning commission. Wow, this is gonna be horrible. So one of the trails here runs from basically the roundabout. Oh, that's perfect, thank you. If you can kind of see this line here, the townhouse cul-de-sac, at the end of that, we have one of those common little parking areas. And out of that is one of the trails, so people on that cul-de-sac can walk. That's what we talked about with planning commission. So people in the plan could walk to Speedway. We figured they would do that. So to give them a safe path from this cul-de-sac, we have the one trail, because topographically, it falls off pretty good from the end of that cul-de-sac down to the roundabout. So that trail is graded in, and then the second trail runs from phase 3 out through the open space outside of the magic line, and then through the open space that will be the clubhouse and the fields, and then to that cul-de-sac to connect those two areas. And we don't really connect with any other properties to the north, and excuse me, the apartment development, we're really separated from that by that stream and the floodplain, so we really can't get across it, and they don't build right up to our property. And the only other place, obviously out front, we have the streets. There's no sidewalk in the existing commercial development. And out to the south, we don't have any access points, and there's no public ways to come up through any of those properties that touch our land. So we figured it was pointless to take something out that way.
Could stay there for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's talk about is phase 3 on back where duplexes are?
Yes.
Does that go all the way back?
Yeah.
Now, we had a resident concerned about how close that duplex set up would be to his property.
Yeah, I believe, Brandon, you correct me, hey, that's a good one. These sets of duplexes on this cul-de-sac in phase 1 with this property line to the north. And what we provided is a complete landscaping plan that shows buffer yard C in that area. And I told Brandon that, we could sit down and take a look at that specific little area and maybe move those plantings closer to the backs of the townhouses, so it appeared,
you know, it appeared from that gentleman's perspective that he had more, but it would be a reasonable buffer. Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Like how many feet, you know that? Well, the homes have to be at least 50 feet, the structures themselves. So the buffer in that area, to me, looks like it's 25, and then the rear yard would be at least 25 to the house. So you're looking at 50 feet minimum in that area.
Brandon, did you check that out?
Yes, could you, Alan, could you clarify what's the buffer yard? Is it the most intense buffer yard?
I cannot. I think it's D.
So I think the interest here is to provide Mr. Felix to address some of those concerns about being close to where his house sits.
Yeah.
Let's think about the most dense buffer yard that we require.
That's not a problem. I mean, to us, it's such a small area, and I did look at it, and it'll be easy to cut his views by beefing that up in that area. So, yeah, I agree to do that, and we're agreeing to do that.
Are you working with him on his well concerns?
I have not spoken to him. It's just a matter of due diligence, if you will, on these developments. We're aware of that, and we always try to get testing on the well, so to protect our clients, so we don't get blamed for something we didn't do. We always try to get well testing and then respond to any complaints on that, which apparently he got well testing, so we'll have a baseline to go from.
Any other questions, comments for this gentleman?
We do have someone on Zoom if you'd like to.
So the board members, you guys. Any other questions, board members? Kevin, I see you get sent the letter, and I saw the letters, I think, July 21st,
That's correct.
and you had some issues. Can you expound on those issues?
Sure. The first iteration of any plan of this size, I was considered to be a rough draft. And then as you go through, now we're in the second phase. They've addressed most of the comments from the May letter. So what we were trying to do is also look at the present constructability for Meadows Landing and the expenses they're going to be putting up front, but also the future costs will be borne by the township when they start to adopt the roads and the storm sewers. So for instance, some of the storm sewers I felt were oversized, so we asked them to maybe scale some of that back. It seems some of the storm sewers were very deep, but they didn't need to be, and Scheffler has addressed those issues. We've discussed stormwater extensively with Mr. Dici, and he's been very responsible on that. In terms of issues that are still outstanding, there's a few minor stormwater issues that we would like to see addressed. That's referenced in our latest
July 19th
letter. And there's a standing issue as referenced by Mr. Dici with potential capacity concerns from Washington, East Washington Joint Authority, WEJA, in terms of capacity and manifold volume.
So you're talking capacity for sewage.
That's correct.
Is there, I know you said you go to meeting next tomorrow someplace, but.
Yes, sir.
How much is there capacity in the current line for your area?
Yeah, they're upgrading the size of the force main. Apparently there's other issues independent of this project, but we need that force main to be brought up to standards too. Obviously, we need it to work. So we approached them last month and.
The authority.
Correct. Thank you. We approached the Township Authority. We had talked to WEJA a few months ago, but we approached the Township Authority to say, look, we know you have a project designed. They put it out to bid and didn't have enough money to do it. We want to help you, bridge the gap and actually do the project. So as far as I know right now, and we'll find out better tomorrow, they're going to rebid the project with some new specs from Ouija. And then when, not to oversimplify it, but when we get the new prices in, then we're going to know what kind of money we're talking about. We're going to do the agreements with the authority and off to the races.
So the new force main will have enough capacity to service both your development and the other development.
And others beyond that too.
So we have to have an agreement for that then.
Yes.
All right, he has some other annotations concerning his letter of July 19th that weren't addressed as it, or they weren't addressed as of July 19th. Were they?
That's correct.
What's your response to his July 19th
Um,
annotations?
Mr. Scheffler worked on
Yeah,
that?
there were minor stormwater comments that we reviewed from the KLH letter, and we're in position to respond to the comments immediately. So.
Any more questions of the board concerning this application?
One more thing on the sewer issue. I believe they just came out with the final parameters of the length of force main that needs to be replaced or upgraded. I believe that just came out last week.
Okay.
To define the bid, so it's not the developer's side of this, process that's been waiting for we to determine the parameters.
So the developers plan to be involved in the expense of the additional capacity in the sewage line, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And assume the responsibility for the cost of that,
Correct.
just to make sure, because that's expensive.
Yeah, it is. That's why we went, I don't remember who contacted who, but we contacted the other developers and said, hey, let's all play nice together and get this done.
But until they define that and put that up to bid, there's nothing we can move forward at the moment.
All right.
Yeah.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments about this matter?
I do.
Okay, your name again? for the
Linda
record?
Rumbaugh.
And you, just record, you've been sworn in before.
I have, yes.
All right, go ahead.
My husband already addressed that issue. I mean, we're talking about houses on the north side, you were saying 50 feet. Their plan, if you take a look at it, is actually on a foot from our property line, 1 foot, 12 inches from our property line. And we talked to the planning commission about it, and they said, well, you can't do that. Everybody was in agreement. Al was in agreement. But as of the way we see it right now, nothing has changed. And if it's not in the writing, I can tell you when it comes time and the bulldozer's up there, they're going to be a foot from our property, and they're going to say, well, that's what the plans are showing. They have not changed. It's still only a foot from our property line.
What do you say about that?
Yeah, from your perspective, it hasn't changed. What we did was we went back and worked with our geotechnical engineer, and we changed the slopes and we pulled the grading away from your property. So it won't be 1 foot from your property. Where were we at, like 20, 25? Yeah, we pulled the top of the slope, because their property goes up back there, and when you get to the property line, we go back down for our houses. And it was drawn 1 foot, and I went out and we looked at the trees, and this isn't gonna fly. So we moved that slope over. So there'll be 20 to 25 foot of virgin ground before we start down.
So in response to KLH, we're also providing additional geotechnical analysis for the grading change along that boundary to
Will we get a
provide
copy of
larger
that
buffer.
also then?
It'll be a submittal.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public concerning this development? Sir, state your name. Take photo, please. Sir, were you sworn in before?
No, I wasn't.
Raise your right hand.
State your full name.
Chester Petrina,
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Current address?
I'm at 300 and 305 Petrina Lane.
All right. Questions or comments, sir?
Yes, I have several questions I'd like to ask. Let me just start out by saying that I'm a lifelong resident of South Strabane Township, 64 years. This property that abuts Meadows Landing has been in my family since 1946. We're on the southern end of the property of Meadows Landing development, and we're approximately 620 feet of our property abuts Meadows Landing. One of my main concerns is there's going to be
over what, 346 dwellings, correct? One of my main concerns is people wandering over onto our property, okay? There is a house on this property. I do have several, utility buildings. I do keep equipment there. So I'm concerned about possible vandalism and, like I said, trespassing on the property. I would like to see, as a conditional use, a fence put up along that approximately 620 feet, at least an 8-foot high fence with no trespassing signs on it. I feel it's the onus falls on Meadows Landing to keep trespassers off of our property, which subjects us to possible liability issues in the future. I don't want to be going up against the HOA at future meetings here about issues with that. I don't want to involve the police department and calling police department with trespassers. I'd like to get this straightened out now. And also, I think Meadows Landing is as concerned about trespassers as I am, because they've already erected a chain link fence on property that abuts ours, concerned about trespassing. So I think they have an equal, concern about it as I do. Meadows Landing trespassing on our property. Meadows Landing is concerned about somebody trespassing on their property. Also, I'd like to get some more information about buffer zones. There wasn't too much emphasis put on that tonight. Could you explain to me, like specifically along our property line, 620 feet, in addition to us requesting a fence, which I understand that's not part of any ordinances, but I'm asking the supervisors to take that into consideration, from what I explained to you, my concerns. What do these buffer zones consist of? Is it going to be natural? Are you going to do the deciduous trees and evergreens? What is it?
Okay. The township's ordinance requires certain buffer areas between the different residential uses, and you're allowed to preserve the existing wooded areas and use those, or let's say for areas that don't have any woods, you have to plant your own buffer trees for that.
Right.
And then some areas there may be a combination of that. In that area along that property line, there's enough existing trees, I think the width's 25 feet off the top of my head, that those can serve, if the board sees fit, those can serve as the buffer yard, the existing trees.
Okay. Are you familiar with the trees along that?
Yes.
Okay, so could you tell me what kind of trees exist along there?
What's that?
Big ones. Tall ones.
Well, I know
healthy ones, unhealthy ones.
Oh, that I couldn't tell you. That's not my
Because, see,
area.
these are all issues.
Right.
And I understand the buffer zone, and a natural is actually, that's a good idea. I agree. A natural is a good way to go. But you have to look at the condition of the trees. You have to look at invasive species. You have to look at, there's invasive vines growing up these trees that smother these trees. It kills them. And here's one of the biggest issues. What about fall? I mean, that's a straight clear through the site into the development. At that point, if you're looking to, limit what somebody sees in a buffer zone, then the fall eliminates that altogether.
All true. Yes.
Okay. So that's a question I have, and if you could pull up the PowerPoint for me, please. The one, that one, on the cul-de-sac on our property line. Okay. Does there still exist an opening between, what are those, duplexes?
For future street?
Yes.
Yeah, at Planning Commission, we were asked to look at both the area going out to Fisher Road, and then to look at possibly going through by happenstance, Mr. Petrina's land to connect to Pine Valley Road. Is that? Okay, thank you. And we found that the one out the back to Fisher worked pretty well, but the one coming off our cul-de-sac down through Mr. Petrina's land, the street became too steep and we couldn't do it. If we lowered the street, it didn't help. And then the fill, there's a stream channel at the toe of the slope for that cul-de-sac. It pushed the fill out of that stream channel. So we demonstrated to the planning commission that that really wasn't feasible. So the simple answer to your question is no, there's no street.
Okay, but there's an opening there. You left an opening.
No.
No, there's no opening
No,
there? When did you close it?
Somewhere between planning commission and the supervisors.
Can I take a, is that,
Yeah.
is this accurate up here?
Yeah.
Can I take a look
Yeah.
at that? Okay, so.
I lied. There's a
Okay.
little tiny opening.
Oh, there's a little tiny.
I said,
opening.
it's for the sanitary sewer. It's not big enough to put a road.
It's a utility.
It's a utility, yeah.
Oh, how wide is it?
20 feet,
20 feet?
20 feet at the
Yeah,
most.
that's a
Yeah.
road map into my place. So this is what I'm concerned about.
Well, it's
What
not
are
big
you- what are
enough
you
for a
gonna do with
road.
that?
I misspoke.
Okay, but what are you gonna do with that? Is it gonna be a grassy area? What's it gonna be?
Yeah, it'll be grass. It's for
And it's
the,
gonna be, and it's gonna be open, 20 foot wide.
Yeah.
And that abuts our property.
yes, I misunderstood your purpose.
Oh,
It's
okay.
on the Meadows Landing property.
Yes.
I understand that.
Why is it gonna be, why would you need a utility going down to his property?
He doesn't, we do.
We do. No, there's nothing on his property. He keeps saying it's.
No. I said it
It's on the
leads to
Meadows
our
Landing
property. I didn't say it
property.
was
It's a
on our
utility
property.
portion.
Okay, because that's not the good, it's his property, it's just,
No.
okay, that's all.
Right, so, but I'm saying that it leads to our property. It's going to be an open space. It's going to be 20 foot. What my point is, I'm making is it's pretty much a road map into our property for people if they want to walk. And so this is my concern here. There's been some misstatements made here tonight about buffer zones, about this. I'd like to get some, clarity on having a fence put up in this buffer zone before I leave here tonight.
You know what? I agree with Chester. I don't want to take up your
No, no.
time, Chester, but I agree with you too. My property's right next to Chester's. And so we're going to have the same problem with people coming over and trespassing because our property meets Chester's, who meets the new development. So we're right there with you.
Right, and like I said, Meadows Landing partners have already erected a chain link fence concerned about trespassing.
Can I address Mr. Freeman's
Sure. Your name,
comments?
just for the record, once again?
My name is Hal Kessler. I'm managing partner of Meadows Landing Associates. Mr. Petrina's comments are to address items that he sees are personal in nature. If you can imagine doing additional residential developments in the township in the future and having approved a condition to fence the perimeter of all of these residential developments would make it pretty onerous. If Mr. Petrina wants a 620-foot fence, I missed your name, ma'am, excuse me, Linda. She has indicated she now wants a fence. What is to keep Mr. Petrina's next door neighbors from also wanting a fence? We may as well put a condition in to fence the entire perimeter of Meadows Landing, whatever other residential developments you have before you. I'm going to ask that Alan Beachy, our engineer, address the personal desire of Mr. Petrina to buffer the sight line to our development. Can you
Can I?
try
it
to,
was my-
we'll turn it back over to you in a second.
It's his turn, go ahead.
Okay.
You have the turn.
What I'd like Mr. Beachy to do is if you're standing on Mr. Petrina's property is maybe we have a rendering.
I don't really have a cross section or topo, but yeah, if you're standing at the house that's closest to that property, it's a pretty steep grade up to the property line. And then the cul-de-sac in question, all those houses around the back are in fill. So you won't see a whole lot of the house.
Up the hill.
There, yeah.
Approximately how many rooftops can you see from Mr. Petrina's property?
5, 6, 7, 8, and then you'll lose them in the, so there's probably 8 rooftops. I would imagine they won't see.
8 months out of the year.
Yeah, and then you're looking up at them and they're set back from the slope, so you might see the roofs.
And I
for the
consider
top
that
half of the houses.
to be a luxury of sorts, because if this topo was like a football field, you'd be looking at 346 units if you were Mr. Petrina.
Could the buffer zone be a native hemlock? It holds it year round.
Mm.
And it has a buffer, it has a sound barrier, and that's a native tree to Pennsylvania.
Okay. I think these are probably cherry, oaks, locusts that buffer this area right now. All
That's
that,
the ones that are there now.
the ones that are there now. So as far as the buffer requirements are concerned, we intentionally preserved that entire buffer to preserve those sight lines all around. But the other comment I'd like to make about the topo is because of the embankment, what are we talking, 1.5 to 1?
The fill slopes are 2 to 1.
2 to 1. People are not walking down those slopes onto Mr. Petrina's property. There's nothing that invites anyone to trespass on his property. It's not a walkway. You go over to the hillside.
At the foot of, excuse me, at the foot of the hill, your highs are up here.
Mhm.
Here's the big slope down in Mr. Petrina's place.
Right.
What does he have down here on the level as a buffer? But he wants a fence.
Trees.
So,
There's
all on the line, there's trees?
Oh, they're deep. I don't know how deep they go.
Yeah, we leave about 50 feet of open space.
There are
with
trees that have been there for
existing woods
decades, centuries.
to the back property line.
All right, so there's the buffer, and you oppose putting a fence up, correct?
I'm sorry?
You oppose the construction of a fence. as easy
Yes,
as-
absolutely.
Okay, I understand.
Well,
It's getting kind of late.
practicality. I mean,
I understand, and expense.
But,
Go ahead, Mr. Lucia. Just, again, go right to the point.
The point again, is the trees, they're cherry, they're invasive vines growing up. I can show you pictures of trees that I've cleaned up.
Well, why do the vines, I live.
Well, they climb up the tree.
I live right, I'm sorry, to interrupt, but I live right up here, 97 Camp Road. I got poppers with big vines coming.
Yeah, would you like to come to my property and help me clean up some trees when the winds blow? Because these trees, these vines are up, they climb up the trees, okay, and they compromise the stability of the tree. I have pictures that I can show you when storms blow in, these trees come down and they're entangled in vines. They kind of smother the tree. I would have to ask you to come out and take a look. I have pictures of trees.
Are they your trees?
No,
Okay.
no, they're not my trees.
The property that's being
No.
developed. the
Well,
borders-
they're-
the
Yeah,
borders
yeah,
with
it's not my
Katrina's,
trees.
It's not been used as long as we've been alive. And
Pardon me?
You and I,
Yeah,
we used to run this.
yeah.
The woods he's talking about, the buffer, has never been used as long as we've been alive, and it's
Right.
just garbage.
Yeah, it is. It's invasive species mostly, okay? And right against my property, there's no oak trees, there's cherry trees. And like I said, if you look at them, they're kind of sparse and they're entangled in vines, they're compromised. I'm just telling you, I'm being honest with you, that it's not a good buffer zone. And as far as the fence goes, look, I hear comments from the board about swimming pools. I hear comments about trails, but for people that haven't even moved in here, people that haven't even started paying taxes yet, okay? For concerns about people that aren't even living here yet. How about let's look at the neighbors that have been here, like myself for 64 years. Let's ask us what we'd like to see. Okay, with our properties that abut this, we've been here, we've been paying taxes, property taxes, 1% taxes for many, many years. I've never been before any board here ever, past or present, and asked for anything. This is the first time. Okay.
Katrina, what kind of fence would you like to see put up?
I would like to see what Meadows Landing Associates has already started, because they're concerned about trespassing, which is probably an 8-foot high chain link fence.
Do you have that fence already started?
We do, not for the reasons that Mr. He's using it as a selling point.
It's for trespassing.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I have
A
met-
chain,
I have
8-foot
talked to
chain
Mr.
link
Petrino
fence is not for trespassing. I guess that's a.
Let me just address one comment from Mr. Petrino. If dead trees on our property fall on his property, we have a legal duty to clean those up. And we'll do that. We've never received a phone call.
What about improving the buffer zone where there is issues of putting in some hemlocks that?
I hear you, but
that
we're
will-
talking about, let's do it all the way around the property. It makes it prohibitive. It's not possible to do. I mean, you're talking about putting to appease Mr. Petrino alone is 620 feet of hemlocks. That's huge. And then the depth, not just a row. Plus, if you put them in, Alan, you've been there. How tall are those trees? 50, 60, 70 feet?
When they're mature?
No. The trees that are there.
Oh, yeah, they're tall. The trees that are there. They're
I
mature.
wasn't asking about a line of hemlocks. I'm saying if there's a few dead trees and you have historical trees that's been there, white oaks,
Right.
leave those, but fill in the gaps with a few hemlocks, which will help his site
Yeah,
not
but
see.
I don't know that we're gonna see the growth in his lifetime to do anything. Those trees have been there.
I'm just asking a question.
You understand my point? Those trees that are there now provide, in my opinion, okay, much more of a buffer for Mr. Petrino than hemlocks would. 8 foot, 10 foot. These are 70-foot trees that are there.
If you
And they
if you
fall-
planted an 8-foot tall hemlock tree,
Right.
to get it to grow tall enough to block out everything is gonna take 15 years.
Centuries.
Maybe more.
Centuries.
No.
It's not getting to
I
70
have
feet.
hemlocks in my
Okay,
yard.
well, I don't have a background in hemlock, so I'll defer to you.
They grow fast.
They can grow really fast.
Really fast.
I'll accept that.
Oh, my back driveway, there's-
You can get evergreens, if you can get arborvitaes, green giants, 3 foot a year. I have over 145 pine trees planted around my.
I'll stipulate.
100 this year.
No, I'll stipulate to that. But
I have a house probably within a 300 foot, and I have a couple utility buildings, okay? I don't live in that house, I live in another house. My main concern is trespassing, okay? That's my main concern.
I'm a little
I would address
confused
it.
about something too. I thought that was Brenda, when you and I talked, you said there was going to be a buffer. So I thought that was already a done deal. Now it sounds like there's not a buffer now.
There's
There are required
absolutely a
buffer.
Okay.
Absolutely a buffer.
Okay.
We
I believe
exceed
that-
those standards.
I believe the code also allows for existing trees that also incorporated a buffer yard, correct?
It's actually preferred, because it'd be counterproductive to cut down.
I agree.
Trees.
I agree.
Yeah.
One thing we could do, try to find some common ground here is to prune some of the old trees out that Mr. Petrino is concerned about falling on his property. Number one, if they do, we'll remove them. Number two, we have a duty. Number two, if it's to, dress up the appearance of the buffer, I don't know what that gains you, but to put some hemlocks, fill in some spaces, I'm sure we can do that.
Yeah, just fill in, not do a.
Right, but we need to define what filling in means. Okay, 620 feet of hemlocks is not filling in. Plus, the next door neighbor's knocking on our door saying, those are some pretty nice hemlocks he's got over there. I'd like some cherry trees,
Again, you make my point, okay? It's all about the people that are not even living in this plan yet. Swimming pools, clubhouses, trails, all these things, okay? All these amenities, which is great. I feel is great, believe me. I'm not against this development. I'm for it, okay? I was here and I voiced my opinion on several occasions about that, all right? Listen to us, some of us have been in this township for many, many years. How about us? I understand your concerns for the people that are gonna be moving into this, but how about us?
I hear you.
All
Okay,
right.
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
What can we do to accommodate this fellow?
I made a
Nothing?
suggestion.
I know. I
Yeah,
heard this.
we want to be good neighbors, but it's got to be practical. To replace 70-foot trees with 8-foot hemlocks that we hope grow every 3 foot a year. No, I know that. I'm suggesting that there's a compromise to be found here, and to allay Mr. Petrina's fears, one is to prune out threatening trees. Absolutely. Put up trespassing. I don't agree with that. There, to have street urchins walking down a 70 or 80 foot slope to find out what's in Mr. Petrina's yard over there. I don't know. Do you have any kind of incidents reports from the police department? Let me finish, please, Mr. Chester, please.
One at a time. Go ahead, finish up. And then we'll let Mr. Petrina, then we'll move on.
I can understand his concern, but again, I'm looking at practicality. If I want to, create mischief somewhere, that's probably the last place on this property I'm going to choose to access. It's because of the topo. It's like, whatever. I can't speak enough on that. But to arrive at a compromise, like I said, we prune out the dead trees. We insert, fill in some hemlocks. Whatever that does, I don't know, but I'd agree to do that.
Yeah, leave the good, healthy trees there.
Yeah.
If there's concerns of.
But they're going to lose their leaves 4 months out of the year too. I can't help that.
Yeah.
To take them down, plus the starting point to this whole thing. If I'm standing on Chester's property, looking up, I think Allen was high with 6 or 7 rooftops. I think it's more like 2 or 3. Can't see the houses from his land. So we have photos, renderings, and other than that, all I can say is we're willing to work. We'll do what's reasonable, it's practical. But do I want to buffer his sight line? Sure, but let's do something that works, not just throw money at it.
What can you tell him tonight that'll work?
Just what I said.
Planting trees.
Filling in trees.
Filling in.
Pruning out
Pruning out.
stuff that's threatening, okay? I don't want to remove his buffer, so I don't want to go too far back, go back maybe 6, 8 feet, 10 feet, whatever, prune out stuff that's threatening, and remove it from his property at our expense. And then if you guys, if he thinks we need to come to some understanding, but if you think that a hemlock is going to work as a filler, I question that, but would agree to fill in.
That was just a suggestion.
And we are, sorry, we are talking about phase 3 of the development, which will be several years down the road.
That'll be 3 to 5 years from
Yeah,
now.
at this point, so.
So we-
Mr.
Petrina.
Yes.
You
Can I just make
brought up your
I
comment.
just want to make a closing.
Come on
comment. Okay?
Come on up.
I just want to say again, let's spare no expense, swimming pools, trails, let's spare no expense, clubhouses, let's spare no expense for additional upgrade to the manifold pump station. No expense, but let's cheap out on the neighbors. That's what I'm hearing, okay? That's what I'm hearing. I'm still, like I said, I'm still asking this board respectively to consider a fence for me, for my concerns, and additionally, do something with that buffer zone. Thank you.
Mark had something.
So where we're talking about, you're talking, so the houses are gonna be up here, we're gonna have a grade, like say?
Like say,
So why would you plant the plants right on the back of them? So they're already up here.
on
high,
top of the hill,
On top, instead of down here where they gotta grow for
That-
40 years to get where they're even gonna walk.
That works. that works. I don't want to speak before, our engineer. We've got to respect slope stability, and there's other issues we have to take. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense, because an 8-foot hemlock is going to block a house rooftop day one from his vantage point down below. Sure, we'll look at that. Would we agree to make that kind of a compromise? Sure.
Not only that, but if they planted some trees now, in 3 years, they'd be 9 or 10 feet taller than they would be now.
Well, that assumes that the grading is done, and most of the grading in that area is done, but it may be elevated. It won't be cut, I don't think. It'll be,
That street will be quite a few years down the road.
that street will be, yeah. So I don't know if we'll plant.
On the slope itself, what do you plant?
I'm sorry, on the slope?
itself, what do you
What-
Permanent steep slope, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it helps to stabilize the slope.
2 to 1. That's a very steep slope.
It's a steep slope next to the street.
Yeah. So you have to have a big root system to hold the slope.
We have walked the site numerous times, obviously. We did it with the council on Bonk a couple years back, different faces, but nobody would try to climb those or come down. And, we're all still pretty young guys, right? So, this isn't somewhere where you're going to see paths going there. I don't even think you can see deer paths going through there. But in any event, like I said, we could, we're not going to be able to plant them until right before the houses are being built, because we have to build the rest of the slope above in that area. So sure, I would agree to do something like that. That's practical. That makes sense.
What's the status of the HOP for that also, that?
Yeah, the HOP was obtained for the commercial development, and all those improvements were
But now you
built.
changed it though.
We're not changing it.
Okay, so the application and the permit, you don't need to change the permit for the HOP?
Correct. Yeah, because the traffic, simply put, the traffic levels go down.
Okay.
So any turn lanes and stacking lanes are plenty good for the future.
Any further questions from the board from anybody?
I need to say one more thing about that. If you could pull that slide up again that showed all those houses there. Down there where that green's at, Steve
Lower
Burrell owns that, where we're talking about, where Chester's Petrine is out on the left right there. Those houses down there where it sort of looks like a cul-de-sac, that house right there is level with the grade that's already there. That property there is owned by Steve Burrell, and that goes straight up past our property over to Chester's. And that is level right there. His house will be level with that property. So people can easily, what he's saying, they can go from those homes right there, right up through where that property's cut and where ours is cut, right over where he's at. So there is an access there. They don't need to go up that slope. And you guys can go take a look at the property. You'll see what I'm telling you is the truth.
Maybe they need to post that property.
It's not, the onus is not on us. The onus is on the development to protect us from trespass. There's been a lot of misinformation tonight, okay? There's been a lot of misinformation. I just hope the board takes that into consideration. I'd be more than happy to entertain any board member coming out and walking the property line.
You know what?
I'd just like to go on record as saying that I disagree with Mr. Petrina and that misinformation has been provided here tonight by anybody on the developers team. There has not been one false statement made. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. The other comment, and I'll finish with this, is there's an assumption being made that because of this development, there are going to be volumes of people walking in areas that people don't typically walk through for many reasons, from bramble to ticks to woodlands to whatever the case may be. So to say that it's flat and in an area, and that's down from Petrina's property towards 19, pretty far down, that people were actually going to walk that way. Again, practicality.
We walked it,
causes
didn't
some.
we? We walked it, we ran it.
Used to trap that.
Yes, yeah, so, yeah, you do.
Mr. Gray, since you're so familiar with that area, what tell me about it?
I used to trap it when we were young.
No, I don't worry about the trap, I don't worry about the
There's
fence.
a fence line along all 5 roads, bushes, a lot of Osage orange, plus a lot of really nice oak. And there's a lot of dead locust. And that property from the fence line in towards Meadows Landing has not been used for years. It's very thick. And there is a concern with a lot of dead trees. Trees that
You need to come up and take a look what's
Yeah.
happened to the Osage orange trees that were on our property because of all the ground moving up there. They're completely uprooted now. And these are trees that were there before, long before our parents were even born.
were they on
On our property,
your
yeah.
property?
And now the roots are up on, they're all leaning now. They're ready to come down at any given time because of all the ground moving.
Those trees, you said anything that's limb falling or damaged, you are going to be
Yeah,
responsible for.
You have a duty to do that. I mean, if you have a tree that falls on your neighbor's property and it started out on yours, get out your chainsaw.
Well, when you're putting in the buffer zone.
Well, he can't go and cut my trees out without my okay
No,
unless I
that's
get
what
Talking
paid for
about
them.
Chester.
Yeah.
We're not planning on doing this all the way around the property. We're trying to reach a compromise with Chester. But no, to say that we're not moving a bunch of bulldozers down in the buffer area. There's little or no disturbance being done in this buffer. Alan, I don't know if you can.
Ellen, you were
Back
there.
me
You
up.
saw the trees. You
I
see how
did.
bad they are. I gave them to the planning
They are.
commission. They have all the photos.
Not refuting that, not at all. But we're not taking we're not removing buffers, but certainly to clean them up because they threaten falling on a neighbor's property, yeah.
So they would be cleaned up.
Folks, you folks here and Trina, has anyone been down to see your property? Any supervisors or any
No.
commissioners or planning commissioners?
No.
Well, I'm gonna make a suggestion. I'm gonna come down.
Okay, sure.
I'm sure some of these other fellows will come down too.
Sure.
I wanna take a look at your place.
Sure, absolutely.
And see what's going on. I wanna take a look at your place. We have to wear long pants.
Yeah, there's a lot of ticks. They're everywhere.
All right.
In fact, spray before you come
That's
up.
what it sounds like, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point's gonna be, my fellow board members, I wanna take a look at this. I'm sure the other board members will wanna do it too. That's only fair to our residents, particularly the ones that have been long-term here. And I agree with one of these statements.
Yeah, our family's been, that farm that we're talking about is 125 years. It's been in my family.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I support that. And so my point's gonna be is, really continue this thing and take a look at
So you make a motion to continue this hearing?
Yes.
You have any problem with that, sir?
I think in light of our timeline right now, I do not.
I don't.
For a
if you
month?
don't. Or schedule wise.
Well, I don't want to trample on, what you guys are.
Yeah,
have
all the other
fussed.
aspects, you're fine, I think.
Right. I wish this would have been brought up. There were opportunities to bring this up, planning. There were many opportunities to have gone over this, but no, I don't think
So
we have a
you,
problem.
as I think you said you're part owner of this process? or
I'm the
part-
managing partner.
Managing partner. So with the consensus of the managing partner for this project, is there a motion to continue this hearing to the meeting in August?
Read the date.
August 24th?
Who has a fancy?
August 24th?
So moved.
I would have I would have one
One
request.
second, go ahead, 1 second, Brian, go ahead.
I'd have one request, that we be permitted to attend your meeting with the Trinas and.
Sure. Walk.
And for the
Absolutely.
record,
I think-
that meeting will be basically a meeting to gain information. I think
Yes.
the Richmond Township case, Supreme Court decision, just to see what's going on.
I think it would be a good idea for us to be represented at that meeting.
It's no problem, just saying basically,
Okay.
yeah, that's no problem, I agree.
Yeah, and as far as tabling this for a month,
Continue this month, so.
So do I need to bring an attorney too then? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay, all right.
We're gonna walk the property.
be my guest.
They can look at it just like I'm looking at it.
Absolutely.
I gotta protect my house, I gotta protect my chickens and walk
They've
the
been out.
property.
They've been out.
Oh, they've been out there?
And he wants to be there when he.
I personally have been there. I would like to be there.
I'm just saying,
when-
it's nothing new.
It's important that the
All right.
supervisors see it.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
main point.
What you will see is what I've represented to you tonight.
Before we table this, there is a citizen on Zoom that would like to speak to this.
Well, there's a motion to continue.
Well, there's someone else on top.
State your name and address, please.
Hold on, let me unmute her.
Hello,
State your name and address.
Charlene, hold on, my phone's dying. I've been on this phone so long. Charlene Scavati, 85 Pine Valley Road.
Would you swear in his brother?
Yes, I do.
Didn't even say it, but go ahead.
Hold, I gotta go get my charger. My phone battery just came on. I was on here for so long. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, hold on. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to make some comments. I also wanted to be part of the stormwater management plan as well as the public comments, and I didn't get to speak. There was nothing that said that I couldn't speak. Everyone was muted in the audience, so I've lost my opportunity for both. But I did have questions for Mr. Beachy, and I did have some comments to make as well. I'll try to hurry since this has been on so long, and I'll get my papers. Hold on, I had to go downstairs. Okay, first of all, I would like to make our June 22nd, 2021 letter from our attorney to be made part of this meeting's minutes. This was the one that was sent to Brandon Stanek in reference to Chris Furman, Kevin Cray, Alan Beachy. I would like to make that as Exhibit K to be part of the minutes, please. Okay, and also, none of these ordinances that we addressed you in that letter stating that you are not permitted to continue to allow water running down through our property. And the minutes, the ordinances are 198.5 EFG, 198.10A 3 through 6, 198.19 H and I, 206.69 G 1 and 2. None of these ordinances were made part of the engineer's report at our request. This site plan is affecting our property. So I want to make the record that this conditional use tentative approval be tabled until these issues are addressed, not ignored. I deserve answers like everyone else does, and I've been ignored for a long time. And I want these ordinances and my attorney letter addressed on why this is being permitted. I have a private culvert pipe that water is going to be infiltrated down through a basin, the 2-year event out of basin 2 with no calculations. No one knows how much water. And the question is, where is it directed to? Does it have sufficient capacity to handle this storm drain, this stormwater, excuse me? There's been no calculations done, and these were my concerns. I was just ignored, not answered. So until these are addressed, I think this should be tabled because I'm tired of being ignored. I want answers why the township does not have to abide by the ordinance that are written to protect the residents for their health, safety, and well-being. That's our township's job. You don't kiss up to all the developers like all the other residents there said. We've been here since 1946 as well. My husband's 72 years old, and he knows those woods better than anybody. Maybe Chester and Russell as well. But there are a lot of dead trees all over the place, and I've been complaining about bramble, dead trees, vines, poison ivy, fallen trees leaning here and there. I didn't get any response, but he's willing to help everybody else. So as far as the trespass goes, Mr. Kessler, the fence, if that fence ain't up there for trespass, like Chester Petrina said, then it must have been put up for malice, and I'll make that a public record too. But right now, at this time, the Conservation District and DEP, they look at your stormwater plan and they do your erosion plan. But the DEP and Conservation does not supersede any federal, state, or local laws. That's you. They do not authorize injury to anyone's property. So even though that goes down to the DEP and Conservation to be reviewed, it still has to come back to our township engineer, and it still has to be approved by the board at a meeting that these are okay to be, that whatever they say is okay. You have to back it up with your own ordinances because they don't supersede them. So also, I wanted to make a record that I would like Mr. Weber and Mr. Lukatich to abstain from voting, because I was up there last week to look at the plan. I heard quite a few slanderous remarks made about my husband and I to these two board members, and unfounded lies were being told in that room.
There's no such information in regard to that. I don't work that, I don't operate that way. I don't want to hear that kind of talk come from you about me. I don't even know what you're talking about. So that, as far as I'm concerned, you're cut off of this thing. Shut her up.
All right, so just for the record, this meeting's being continued. There's a motion to continue. I believe you haven't made that motion. Do the motion yet. That motion is to continue this meeting till August, whatever, with the consent of the managing partner. Burns made that motion. Is there a second to that?
Just a second, please. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All in favor of the motion to continue this hearing, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. What will be required of us at the next hearing? Any kind of presentation?
We'll be in touch to prepare you.
This is that, yeah. If you're gonna be in between, you go look at those trees, whatever, with the different colors.
We just want to be prepared.
And also, the gentleman behind you,
You'll be with me, Kevin.
the gentleman behind you, he has an issue with his well, is that the problem? Mr. Felix, you guys make sure he's taken care of.
Yeah.
Please.
We'll get his information.
All right. Good night, folks. Going home. All right. What do we have next? We have, go ahead. Thank you.
13, please. Public hearing to consider a resolution approving a transfer of restaurant liquor license number 59948 from Cascade Housekeeping of Peters Township to Carmen's Barrel LLC for a restaurant at 10 McCoy Lane, Washington, Pennsylvania. Mr. Stanton, give us a briefing before we turn over to Mr. Maker.
Sure, we have a liquor license application for a request for a transfer of a liquor license application for a restaurant at the location of 10 McCoy Lane. This is a property that had previously last year gone through a text amendment conditional use process to allow a winery at that location. They are now pursuing, in addition to that, they are pursuing also right now to open up a restaurant. They permitted use as of right in the C2 district. And then just as an FYI, they do have a text amendment and a conditional use application to allow liquor distilleries in the C2 district as well. Winery, winemaking, and distilling liquor are very comparable processes, but they're coming back to amend the code to allow liquor now instead of wine. But the request before you again is strictly a restaurant liquor license transfer into the township from a location in Peters Township to allow liquor to be served at this restaurant.
That's great.
All right, before you, no, sorry, yeah. However, proceed with the hearing. Sorry about that. Is there a motion to place into evidence the following exhibits? Exhibit A would be a letter from Galvin and Wiesman concerning the request for the approval of a restaurant liquor license for Peters Township, South Strabane Township. Exhibit B is the proposed resolution drafted by the applicant to transfer said license. Exhibit C is a letter from Attorney Lodge as a resident opposing the transfer based upon the previous conditional use granted by the township. Exhibit D would be a letter dated September 1st, 2020 from Mr. Static to Mr. Armin Geronian concerning the application for conditional use for the Boutiques Winery. Exhibit E will be the publication, and exhibit F, G, H will be some type of we call internet site for the Army Payroll for both the restaurant, the winery, and distillery. Is there a motion to place in exhibit evidence?
Move to accept the exhibits A through H. Thanks, Mr. Brown. Here, second, please. Second. Thank you, Mr. Lucas. All in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
At this, I assume you two people are going to make them,
Yes, I'm counsel for our Mr.
you don't
Geronian.
have to be sworn in.
What's your name, sir?
Sir,
Mark, M-A-R-C, Reisman, R-E-I-S-M-A-N.
please, member of the court, the gentleman behind you.
It is Armin, A-R-M-E-N, last name Geronian, G-E-R-O-N-I-A-N.
Could you raise your right hand and be sworn in, please?
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, go ahead, Mr. Reason.
Thank you. I'm going to try to make this short because the hour's getting late, but the building in question, I believe, was a roller skating rink. It's cut neatly down the middle. There's a wall, and I don't know if it's glass or see-through plastic. It's glass. So what's going on is the winery is limited to one side of that wall. And actually, if the conditional use permit application is approved, the distillery will also be located over there. Mr. Geronian intends to only sell wholesale and not to the public the products there. The distillery is going to be vodka and at some point perhaps brandy.
But that distillery is down the road. Right now.
It's down the road. Right.
In the winery, whatever, we keep the granted back last summer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And so the restaurant is going to be located in the other half of the building. It's going to be a fine dining establishment. I actually have about 5 or 6 copies of the menu, which is actually also on the website. There's going to be limited hours, no outside serving areas, and the servers are going to be ramp trained. The prospective manager is already ramp trained. There's already a person trained with the Serve Safe program. And I think it's going to offer something that's unique to the municipality and the area. And with that, I think it's going to be asset to the municipality. And with that, I'm going to, I do want to make just a few comments about the letter that was admitted from, is his name Stan? Monich, yeah, Monich. Okay, all right. Of course, he lives nowhere near the facility. The letter was written today. I received it about 3 o'clock, courtesy of Mr. Stanek. And so, and I'm not qualified to talk about zoning matters. That's not my practice. But as was noted, it is a use that's permitted. And I think we need to get to the nuts and bolts of it for you to understand what Mr. Geronian plans to do. And his idea is that it's a natural setup for a restaurant. He can offer his products there, but also with an R license, products from around the world, strictly as a complement to dining. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Geronian.
Well, I'll try to be real quick too. Just to report the progress since we bought that building last November. Of course, everything has been cleaned up. The building does not look like abandoned anymore. Their video surveillance 24/7 over there, their security system, their fire alarm system, all is in action, all is active, all has been tested and approved. Now, inside of the building, there were no structural changes. We just made sure that everything looks and functions beautifully. We invested a lot of money into that. Basically, the theme of the building is barrels and glass. Everything there is barrels and glass. And when you walk into the area that we hope will be a restaurant, you will see on the right side all our operations, 260 barrels to be exact, and it's a beautiful look. This is something that I just saw only once in California. And you will see huge fermenters, stainless steel fermenters. And in the restaurant itself, everything is either leather for chairs, and all the tables are barrels, and all the tops are glass. So since this location is not in the downtown of Washington, it's not on heavy traffic area, this can only be the destination. So that actually drove the idea behind the restaurant. It is very upscale steakhouse with the influence of the French cuisine. Unfortunately, it is not going to be a place for someone to stop by at the end of the workday and have a sandwich and a couple of beers because it's going to be expensive. But as I said, it's a destination place, and we are hoping to have people from all over the area to come visit us to show their friends how it is to celebrate their those days. We don't expect a lot of customers, but we are hoping that since that part of the town is missing the upscale restaurant, we will be successful. With that said, I'm hoping you can approve the transfer of the R license, because with the prices that you see on the menu, the R license is almost a necessity. Thank you.
Any questions, board members? Is there anybody here in the public has any questions, comments regarding this?
Yes,
State your name and address. I think we sworn in, Nancy?
yes.
All right.
Nancy Gray, 81 Lyman and 1601 Pierce, Washington, PA, up in Pancake. My 81 Lyman property, the rear of it is 30 feet from this parking lot. And I'm gonna make a few comments. I do have a question, because I'm not familiar with our license, and I have searched as best I could through the PLCB licenses and have not come up with anything. So I couldn't find anything to guide my thinking about this. But I would like to say that this started out with the desire to have a distillery, and then it became a winery, and then it was a winery that was going to have snacks, and then it was going to have some occasions that were served there. And then back sometime in January, I believe, someone for the first time in all of the years that I've lived in South Strabane since 1959, someone decided to post what they called a legal notice on telephone poles in my community. And one got put on a telephone pole right across from my 81 Lyman Avenue property, but I did not see it until April or May when I was mowing my yard, because one of my neighbors had a truck parked by that telephone pole all winter long. So I was completely unaware that there was any hearing, any Zoom meeting, any hearing, which was what was described. And I would like to express my complete fury with this township for changing how legal notices are done without making anybody aware. So I got no letter telling me that there was another change happening with this property that directly impacts me. What we get posted on our telephone poles in my community are lost dogs, lost cats, yard sales, estate sales. Never in all the time I've lived there have we had a quote unquote legal notice posted on a telephone pole. Beyond that, I'm going to tell you that This is not the last change this man's gonna come to you with. He's gonna, did he remove fallen dead trees from behind the property? Yes. Did he do some upgrades, I believe, to air conditioning for the property? Yes. It still has a red metal sidewall that makes it look fairly rustic, and he changed the paint color on the top, and he put an Armand's Barrels sign. He did put in security cameras, and I will say that he's been more polite than the prior one was about lighting, and his lighting does not intrude into our properties since right about the time of the property transfer as it had before. There's still going to be issues from my perspective with bringing one more drinking establishment into our community. And right now, there's not a whole lot of traffic that goes to his property. I've seen a few semis. I've seen at least one, I heard of more. And I see Service Master over there with regularity. Some traffic for people who go to his building do come down Sanders Alley and zig around the little triangle. So they are coming through the community where we're walking dogs and kids are riding bikes. And right now, it's not a lot of traffic. But I'm going to predict to you that the restaurant is not going to be any more of a success than the standalone winery or the hosting events was, and that at some point we are going to be stuck with one more bar and pancake impacting our township, our community. And with that, I'm going to leave you because I have horses that aren't fed and dogs that aren't fed, because I, the one person to talk about this, had to wait through everything else. And I just can't believe that this gets held to last every time. Have a good evening. No, there was public, my understanding is there was a notice in the paper in all probability, just like there was a public hearing notice in the paper for this. But when you're doing something that is within 300 feet of the residence, you're supposed to give us a notice. And this township tends to send out things in envelopes that say to current residents. They don't have your name on them. You're within 300 feet, but your name's not on the letter that you get. So you look at it and you think it's something that's basically junk mail. I get so much mail all the time. I don't have time to read all of the incidental mail, and it goes into an incidental mail pile. Things that have my name on it, things that say that it's an official business, I look at. I've never once through this whole process gotten anything like that. Not once. And I'm going to tell you, the whole time the skating rink was there, when Carl Onacue owned it, well, when Brownlee Trucking owned it, it was never a problem. When somebody else owned it, it was never a problem. When Carl Onacue owned it, it was never a problem. From the time Tony Hartledge took over, God rest his soul, it's been a problem. There's been alcohol bottles thrown on the back of my property. There's been a neighbor at one point gave me a car that he would to fix up and he was going to not use it. Kids from the skating rink mashed in the windshield and made it worthless. So I had to jump in. It has, anytime somebody from outside the community has come in and used that building, it has been a problem. And there's no regard for anybody who lives there. I have to say that the gentleman who said that there's a whole lot of concern about who's going to be here and how much money it's going to bring, that's the truth. That's where the concern is. There's not a whole lot of concern for anything regarding our community. You're not preserving our community character. We didn't ask for a restaurant, a winery, anything. Not an upscale restaurant, not a hot dog stand in our neighborhood. And we didn't. Oh, by the way, I was told that we didn't care enough to show up at the meeting. I believe that Mr. Murphy, no offense to you, but I believe you're the person who told one of my neighbors that nobody from the community cared enough to show up at that meeting about this being changed to a restaurant. Well, guess what? We did care. We wouldn't have paid Tom Lonage, who, by the way, wrote a letter partly because he was our paid counsel for months, and we paid him thousands of dollars because we do care. We care very much about our community. And to have neighbors tell me, well, it's coming in because you didn't care, is like another slap in the face. We did care. And furthermore, we didn't ask for East Maiden to be rezoned from commercial to residential. We asked for a limited of 6 properties to be rezoned to residential. so that we could shield ourselves from other properties coming in there and putting businesses right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And instead of acknowledging that it was 6 properties, people in this board said, oh, well, we can't possibly rezone. That would affect all of this area. No, we asked for 6 properties. So Mrs. Schwantz lost a sale. Mrs. Schwantz is sort of struggling with relationships with some neighbors because of all of this. And a lot of us are just not feeling like we can trust anyone on this board to look out for our interests. And a lot of people didn't show up tonight because they feel like it's a lost cause anyway.
For rezoning, we did what the code required. We posted a notice on the properties that were going to be rezoned. And because it's a general rezoning of a particular properties, those property owners receive letters advising them that their property is up for rezone, not neighbors with agreement.
Is that what the code requires?
That's what the code requires.
I think there was a comment or two directed at the operation. I just like to state, you can see from the menu, this is not a drinking establishment. Mr. Geronian has a sophisticated business plan, which has developed over time. And it's not going to be the kind of business that's going to attract vandals and boisterous people, disturbances of the neighborhood, police time. And it's actually, as you may know, craft distilleries, I'll stick to wineries, craft anything these days is something that's, they're like coffee shops now. They're everywhere, they're popular. And he has a great interest in winemaking, and I think it's really going to be a nice place. It's going to be an asset to the neighborhood, and we'd love to invite her over for dinner if and when you allow him to open up. And as he said, the liquor license is an integral part of the business plan and a necessary part for a restaurant.
Any further questions, board, concerning this matter?
Yes. Do we have Mr. Lodge's letter and we approve?
It's I heard it. What?
Did he speak for all the people? I mean, that's he's speaking for the people.
He spoke as a citizen, as a private citizen, and he had to stand. He didn't speak for the residents. He said state that specifically.
That's their attorney, and they didn't speak for the people.
He said he's not been retained. I guess he was retained.
He used to be their attorney. I don't think he is anymore, from what she said.
And all he, in his letter, he just states, he's sending to you based on it being a resident of the township. Okay, so but we made that as an exhibit.
So there isn't any representation other than Nancy Gray this evening. She's the only one who lives out there.
Yes.
Nobody else.
Anybody else here in the public has any further questions or comments? Is there?
When do you look at opening your restaurant? How soon?
Well, the timeline is we will be able to file the application for transfer of license once we get the written resolution from the board. And the timeline for approval, it is the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, and in 32 years of practice in this area, I really hate to tie down the time limit for approval, but anywhere, I'm going to say, we hope, 3 to 4 months.
Is there currently a winery there right now?
Yes, however, he hasn't started production. He's waiting for the fall harvest of the grapes for grape juice.
So this facility is going to have 2 businesses in it.
Correct.
One's a boutique winery and one's going to be a restaurant.
Yes, and it's owned by the same company, Armin's Barrels.
The restaurant area, have you that's already built and laid out and everything, or?
Yes, that is correct. We actually have been inspected by probably at least half a dozen of federal and PA organizations.
Can you say that again?
federal and Pennsylvania organizations. He's been inspected by a half a dozen.
Yes, and we being audited all the time, like on August 16th, it's audited by state police. So everything that I'm talking here regarding the winery and distillery have been fully built and ready to go. We actually have ordered the juice already, so I wanted to add this a couple minutes ago, and still would like to. We actually talk to neighbors a lot, to many of them, and neighbors walk to us all the time. Alex, guy right across the street, Miss Schwans, she sends us cookies. This lady, I hope she will read whatever the public statement after this meeting is, and hear my words. I will love to talk to her, just to calm her down, just to explain that this is not going to be a dive bar. I have 3 kids. I want this to be a prosperous business. I want my name to be on the bottles of wine and not to be ashamed of it. Thank you.
I want to thank you. I was going to ask you a question when you spoke to the neighbors. Have they been friendly to you? But you've already answered that. You
Yes.
said they've been friendly.
All of them,
So they've
all
been
that we
receptive.
talked to.
So
That is correct.
at least there's been some contact with the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a motion to close the testimony?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I need a second, please. I'll second it. Thank you, Mr. Ditch. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carried 5-0.
If I can help you, Mr. Weber, with the motion?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve a resolution transferring the liquor license as set forth in the resolution prepared by the applicant? Addition upon compliance with all township ordinances, including the township zoning ordinance, and also to comply with the township's conditional use requirement to set forth a letter prepared by Mr. Stanek dated September 1st, 2020.
So moved.
I'll second that. Thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay, let's move
All
on.
right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Joe.
Go ahead, Mr. Beal.
Motion granting final plan residential development approval for Pennsylvania Finance 2 for LLC for the Burkett Manor Plan Residential Development along Burkett Manor at US Route 19, parcel number 600-01-00-00-00-0048-00 in the R4 residential zone. Mr. Stick, can you give a briefing, then we'll move on to the next.
Sure. This parcel is at the corner of Burkett Manor and Route 19. I've been in front of the board and the planning commission on several occasions. We had a rezoning earlier this year from C2 to R4. And then we had a conditional use approval previously and tentative PRD. What's before you now is the final PRD for Burkett Manor. This comes with a full positive recommendation from the board. No, I do want to emphasize, they have not changed the length of street of Red Bud Lane, but they have fulfilled one of the requirements to go ahead and actually express in writing a request for a modification from the SALDO, subdivision land development ordinance. And that modification is to exceed the 1,500 foot minimum length of a road with a cul-de-sac. So Red Bud Lane will be 1875.
Are they in compliance?
They're asking for the modification to be. It's a variance for us. The standard is 1,500 minimum, 1,500 foot minimum.
Says maximum.
Yeah, maximum. I'm sorry, 1,500 foot maximum length of a road with a cul-de-sac. They're going to exceed that by 335. And they're asking for a modification from the code requirements, which is a variance of the requirement.
Anything about that, Kevin? You on it?
I agree with it's acceptable to make variance for that request.
So you want to make a motion to approve this? Right? subject to review of the HOA.
We will require the HOA document. that we
Yes.
have Not received yet.
That is, we will do it. Hey, my name is David Lucci. I'm from Victor Wetzel Associates. I am the consultant for this development. So, yeah, we don't have a problem with the HOA documents.
Reviewed by the township solicitor,
That is, yeah,
and subject to the township solicitor's approval.
that is correct.
Okay?
You have the documents already prepared?
No.
We will submit them as soon as next week. If we can do that, we'll do that.
We have to get them to it.
Sure.
So,
And the length of the road.
all right. A motion to accept the final PRD. Motion to accept the final plan residential development approval for PA Finance, whatever, two LLC for the Burkett Manor Plan Residential Development located along Burkett Manor, so forth, subject to review by the township engineer of the HOA to the township solicitor satisfaction, and that the length of the road be a maximum of 1,500 feet. 1875. So that would be your motion.
So moved. Thanks, Mr. Burns. Second, please. I'll second it. Thank you, Mr. Lukasich. All in favor, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to consider a resolution for preliminary and final subdivision approval for correction to the CNX Land LLC subdivision #1 plan.
2 months ago, the board approved a subdivision from Meadows Mining and CNX Land. This was the subdivision that was on the border of North Bet and South Spain Township. There was a simple scrivener's error with in regards to the property owner's name. It's not Meadows Mining, but CNX Land LLC, and this is just to correct the property owner's.
That's the whole nature of it?
Yes.
Move to approve.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Byrne. Need a second, please.
If this gets controversial, we're in trouble.
I would hope not.
Are you representing?
Yeah.
What you got there? Telephone?
Yeah, since I just told my client for several hours to see. Andrew Chumney, Peacock Keller, 95 West Bow Street, Washington, PA, here on behalf of CNX Land. I won't waste any more of the board's time. Brandon adequately summarized everything. It was simply a scrivener's error that was presented to the board before it was presented to CNX Land by the surveyor. Once we got the approval and the plans were submitted for us for recording, we noticed the error and have made the appropriate, taking the appropriate steps to correct the plan with both South Strabane and North Bethlehem.
Is North Bethlehem already approved?
We were in front of North Bethlehem Planning Commission last night to review. They wanted it to go in front of planning again and their supervisors. So their planning commission approved last night, and
their board approved.
It will not be approved with their board until August 9th.
On the recommend table, it's all taken care of those places.
Well, we would ask you to do it first, with all due respect.
But that's approved first of all, North Bethlehem.
Could be conditioned on that.
You can make a motion, you can make a motion.
Change. I mean, you've already approved.
I know it's very simple appearance, but there's two municipalities involved in this.
Yes, but
It's
one,
okay with just us.
yeah, well, one of them will have to go first. I mean,
That's us.
it's just a matter of,
There's
the
the planning commission, huh? Did we do the planning commission here?
We did not. I thought the solicitor affirmed about that requirement. It appeared that this was simple name change, not required.
It's not gonna have any effect. I don't think, based on my understanding what's going on. So we've already made the motion to approve it. It's not a big issue.
Let's put that condition. North Bethlehem.
Did we already make a motion or?
I made the motion that we approve the name change, and I don't think it's conditioned on whether the other township changes it or not. That's their business.
All we do is change the name on a certain.
We're changing the document.
That's all we're doing. Nothing major.
We already approved.
Okay.
It's the equivalent of a typo. I've already made the motion.
We got it. You got it? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Okay, motion approving a resolution updating the South Strabane Township policy and procedures manual regarding canine operating guidelines, response to suspected overdose events, use of computers and criminal justice information systems, and Washington County local rule of criminal procedure. Chief?
Evening. Our ongoing comprehensive review of our policy manual, we've identified 4 policies that we've upgraded for various reasons, from technological advancements and changes to legal changes, case law changes, or personal changes in the department. So
Canine changes.
yeah, changes and changes ongoing. All policies developed by committee, all key stakeholders involved, including the unions where appropriate. I recommend approval of all 4.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second. Thank you, Mr. Lucas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Last motion was the 4-1. I didn't state that. 8 was up to the blank. Aye. Motion authorized a lien on property located at 906 Idaho Street for violation of section 302.4 high grass and 308 rubbish and garbage of the township property maintenance code. Mr. Stanton.
906 Idaho Street received notice of violation regarding high grass and debris on their property without response, and we are requesting the township to authorize a lien should it cost the township at a minimum of $500 to take care of the grass and the rubbish and garbage.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second, please. Second. Thank you, Mr. Lucas. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Letter J, motion authorizing Premier Power Solution LLC and township manager to shop for renewal rates for the supply of electricity and natural gas for municipal service.
Sure. Premier Power Energy has been a consultant of ours to help us with the supply of natural gas and electricity purchasing for our facilities. This was done 3 years ago. That time frame is about to expire, and it's time to go back to the marketplace. Premier Energy Solutions helps us understand what those rates are and to get the best rate. So what this motion would do is to authorize me, because it's literally the commodity market, to go ahead, work with the consultant to get the best rate and lock it in.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay, motion approving Exhibit A to the municipal winter traffic service agreement with PennDOT for the 21-22 season. Mr. Stanton.
Perennial favorite here with the PennDOT winter maintenance agreement for Lakeview Advanced Station Dedeker Manifold Data School in Oak Grove. They will, the cost this year they will pay us is $25,179, and that means that we will apply salt, de-ice material, and take care of the road.
Motion to approve. Hey, beat you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Lucas, good, Mr. Burns, I'll take you in a second. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Need a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Lukatich, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.